hospitable spirit through networking and academic collaborations, together in communion, participation, and mission. To evoke God's blessings on us, I invite team from Fatima College, Madurai for the prayer.
Good morning, all. Let us gather our scattered self and calm our minds and hearts as we enter into this prayer. Let us thank God for blessing us with the gift of this new day and all that we are going to experience and be enriched. A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 6. God is above all, present in all, and works through all. The word of God. Thanks be to God. Let us listen to reading from Gitanjali. Open thine eyes and see thy God is not before thee. He is there where the tiller is tilling the hard ground and where the path maker is breaking stones. He is with them in sun and in shower, and his garment is covered with dust. Put off thy holy mantle, and even like him, come down on the dusty soil. Come out of thy meditations, and leave aside thy flowers and incense. What harm is there if thy clothes become tattered and stained? Meet him and stand by him in toil and in sweat of thy brow.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. Oh, I worship you, Jesus, I worship. You're turning lives around. You are here, oh, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship. You mended every heart. You are here and you're mending every heart. I worship you. Yeah. I worship you, Lord. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Yeah, you're the waymaker, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Yeah, sing it again. You are, yeah, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, it's who you are, Jesus. Yeah, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is, sing, that is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. And that is who you are. Oh, and that is who you are. Yes, it is, yeah. It's who you are. Waymaker. Let's sing this together. Even when I don't see it. Come on, even when. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Come on. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop. Oh, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, yeah. Oh, even when I don't see it, you're working. Yeah. You never stop, you never stop. You're the waymaker, yeah. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
God of love and source of all goodness, we believe you are present here and now, moving in our midst and working vibrantly in this place. We have gathered here in a spirit of communion to explore the possibilities of journeying together in synodal spirit by networking and collaboration as higher educational institutions. We ask for your heavenly blessings and graces upon all of us as we work together. Give us foresight by which we plan for the future. Give us confidence to discover and explore new possibilities. Give us wisdom to discern what is right, good, and just. Keep us focused of the people whom we are serving. Calibrate our intentions. Clarify our goals and vision. Make clear the paths we trod. May our initiatives and efforts be benefiting those in the periphery of the society, namely the poor, the weak, the oppressed, the bonded, the lost, and the least. For you are there in their midst. Amen. We shall pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Team Fatima College, Madurai, for this beautiful prayer. It is our immense pleasure to have amid us Dr. Shashi Tharoor, one of the most towering personalities of Indian politics among us. We are eagerly looking forward to hear from you, respected sir, on the theme, Idea of University, Key Developments in the Higher Education Ecosystem, and the role of universities, colleges in promoting liberal education. I now call upon Dr. Sister Jonita, former principal, Mount Carmel College, Bangalore, to offer a potted plant as a symbol of sustainability to our respected guests. Thank you, sister. I request Dr. Sister M. Rashmi AC, Principal, Patna Women's College, to felicitate our respected guest with a shawl. The session will be moderated by Reverend Dr. Father Abraham Vetiankal, CMI, Vice Chancellor, Christ Deemed to be University, Bangalore. May I now invite Dr. Sister Christine Coutinho, Principal, Loreto College, Kolkata, to introduce our moderator of the session.
He helped youth to climb the mountain, and he found that he too had reached the pinnacle. This defines the influence Father Abraham VM has had on youth. Father Abraham took over as Vice Chancellor of Christ Deemed to be University in March 2019. He had served as Pro-Vice Chancellor for over 10 years. Father Abraham has a string of credentials both in the academic and administrative areas of education and in educational leadership for Vice Chancellors. Having completed his post-graduation in mathematics in Calicut, and a second master's in computer science from Iona College, New York, he pursued PhD in mathematics from Bangalore University. An accomplished scholar, he has publications in various reputed journals and is on the editorial board of well-known journals. An efficacious administrator, Father Abraham has served as principal of Christ Junior College, finance officer of Christ College, professor in mathematics, and director, Center for Research, making a difference in policy making to reinvigorate academic culture. Standing tall on the shoulders of his predecessor, his focus on teamwork has brought to fruition best academic and administrative practices, enabling a healthy atmosphere for socially and academically impactful research. More recently, Father Abraham was conferred with the honorary rank of Colonel Commandant in the NCC by the Ministry for Defense. Under his leadership, Christ Deemed to be University is the first to introduce NCC as a credit course. Having touched so many lives, Father Abraham continues to lead Christ University to academic heights. We are blessed that Father Abraham will moderate this morning's session.
Thank you, sister. Over to you, Father.
Thank you, sister, for the nice words. I am very happy to introduce Dr. Shashi Tharoor, the proud son of our country. Dr. Shashi Tharoor, a third-term member of parliament for Thiruvananthapuram, is a best-selling author of 23 books, both fiction and non-fiction. Besides being a former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and a former Minister of State for Human Resource Development and for External Affairs in the Government of India. He has won numerous awards, including the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman, a Commonwealth Writers' Prize, and a Crossword Lifetime Achievement Award. In 2019, Dr. Tharoor was also awarded the Sahitya Academy Award, the category of English non-fiction, for his book, An Era of Darkness. He chairs Parliament's Standing Committee on Information and Technology. If I say more, he won't get time to speak. So I invite Dr. Shashi Tharoor to speak on idea of university, key developments in the higher education ecosystem, and the role of universities or colleges in promoting liberal education. Over to Dr. Shashi Tharoor.
Thank you very much, Father Dr. Abraham, for that generous introduction. Dr. Anthony Arakel, President of the session, Father Abraham, who's moderating us, Dr. Sister Christine, Director of Loreto College, Dr. Sister Teresa, Secretary General of the Xavier Board of Higher Education. It really is a pleasure for me to join you all this morning at this wonderful, distinguished gathering of educationists. I gather 340, I was told by Father Anthony, are all here this morning, and all of you are actively involved in higher education. This is your 24th Triennial Conference of the Xavier Board of Higher Education, taking place in this very beautiful venue, in this very beautiful state of Goa. My thanks very much to the board and its executive committee for inviting me to address this gathering, and of course to Father Gilbert for shepherding me here. Let me begin by offering my warm congratulations to the Xavier Board and its members for the rich contributions that you have all made in shaping the higher education landscape in our country. It's a matter of great pride that the 420 colleges and the 6 universities, or deemed to be universities, one of the silliest titles I have. When I was in the ministry, I used to say, drop this business. If you've deemed them to be a university, they're universities. Just call them university. But anyway, our bureaucracy moves at a glacial pace, and no doubt sometime in the next century, we will be allowed to drop that phrase. But anyway, the 6 universities under the board represent some of the finest institutions of excellence in our country today. And this is a living testament to the rich contributions by the Catholic Church in the field of education. I say this to you not merely as someone who has followed developments in the higher education space fairly closely, but as also as one who's been the product of two Catholic educational institutions, Campion School in Bombay and St. Xavier's in Calcutta, and therefore as someone who has personally experienced the richness of the education imparted, the vibrant exchange of ideas and thoughts that are part of a Catholic education, and the inimitable way in which these institutions prepare its pupils to take on the challenges of life itself. I've also spoken at many of your institutions, notably Father Abraham's Christ University twice or three times, I think, and if I'm not stretching a point, I have two sisters and a wife who went to Loreto, and one of them later to Sophia College. So I mean, really, I have a lot of intimate connections with your institutions, and long may your institutions continue to give that invaluable service to our country in providing quality, affordable education to young Indians and help us to continue to develop generations of socially responsible, academically and practically gifted pupils and morally conscious young leaders who will play a crucial role in taking our country forward. Now, in keeping with the heritage of the board and its core focus rooted in the Indian higher education landscape, I thought I would take this opportunity this Sunday morning to share with you my thoughts on the theme of the idea of the university, a phrase which, as many of you probably know, is most famously associated with a two-volume collection of essays and indeed a series of speeches under that title by Cardinal John Henry Newman that were first published in 1852. The idea of a university in which teaching and research were combined in the search for impartial truth reached classic form in 19th century Germany, associated with the famous Humboldt model, which became the dominant global model of the university, a place with intellectual and academic freedom, university autonomy, the growth of independent disciplines with their own standards and priorities, and increasing internationalism. This was the model that Newman had in mind when he spoke and wrote the idea of the university. Now, though he was primarily speaking of religious education, Cardinal Newman showed remarkable foresight in articulating the concept of the modern-day university as an intellectual and liberal engine for contemporary society, intended to serve as a haven for a community of thinkers for whom the cultivation of the intellect could, in his words, be reasonably pursued for its own sake. Even a century and a half later, his powerful arguments for the value of a liberal education and the principal duties of a university are well worth looking to for inspiration. To Cardinal Newman, the purpose of education was not to be merely preoccupied with the gathering or gaining of knowledge, wisdom, or even scientific temper, but one that was motivated by the cultivation of a certain intellect and a universal knowledge that aided the enlargement of the mind and its illumination. Now, what would this imply for a university? Forgive me. The reason I'm being fueled like this with hot water is I have a bit of a cold, and I apologize for inflicting a sore throat on you. If I'm not entirely comprehensible, you can always question me later, and I will try and clarify what I was trying to say in my croak. So, to quote the Cardinal in his own words, he believed that as a matter of history, the business of a university is to make this intellectual culture its direct scope, or to employ itself in the education of the intellect. Just as the work of a hospital lies in the healing of the sick or the wounded, or a riding or a fencing school or a gymnasium in exercising the limbs, of an almshouse in aiding and solacing the old, of an orphanage in protecting innocence, of a penitentiary in restoring the guilty. So he says, just as each of these places has a purpose that's central to it, for a university the central purpose is the education of the intellect. Now, this was a radical departure from the utilitarian perspective on the role of education, as a tool for economic and social progress. And this has therefore been challenged by the Cardinal's critics. And there's certainly merit in recognizing that Cardinal Newman, who spent more than half his life at Oxford University, was writing at a time where universities remained the playing fields of those with social, political, or evangelical capital, or roughly those who either belonged to the gentry or to the church. In India, too, the best universities, though still attached to the traditional idea of the university, are still seen mainly as oases of social privilege, unconnected to the so-called real world of economic and employment opportunities. The Newman idea, it must be said, also makes no allowance for polytechnics or vocational forms of education. In other words, as the historian Sophia de Boyck has pointed out in The Guardian, Newman says little about the level of practical, employable skills that should be imparted as part of a course of higher education, revealing his limitations as the ultimate ivory tower dweller. He offers us little help on how the balance can be struck between pursuing knowledge for its own sake and giving students the saleable skills they surely deserve. He has even less to offer on the pressing matter of how the whole enterprise may be paid for. Now, I'm giving you these contrasting views so you can see where the debate lies. Increasingly, demands for research to be economically and socially relevant, to help students find work in the real world, have challenged the classic Newman view of untrammeled academic freedom. What policy should be pursued to preserve democratic access to the best higher education and to match individual talent to intellectual aspirations as well as societal needs? Universities are coping with various demands of students for impressive qualifications, of employers for usable skills, of the economy for innovation. But most universities are still set up in the classic mold, to operate in the realm of values and culture, to be concerned more about political issues than market conditions, to be, in short, the ivory towers so disdained by hard-headed employers. Now, for most families in India, these utilitarian concerns are realities that we are particularly familiar with, perhaps more so because the fact is that in our country, our educational system has historically served as a beacon of hope in a tumultuous world for millions, even if arguably the system in itself has not become yet our greatest glory. It is, of course, imperative to remember our humble beginnings on the eve of India's independence. Britain's crippling and debilitating colonial rule left us with only 16% literacy, barely 30 universities, and about 700 colleges, with an enrollment of about 4 lakh students in the entire Indian subcontinent. While India struggled for the next 5 decades as the poorest, most illiterate, most malnourished, and the least gender-sensitive major country in the world, with over half of the world's illiterate adults and 40% of the world's out-of-school children residing in India, the trajectory of our progress to our present state is quite remarkable. With Jawaharlal Nehru's vision and efforts to systematically build up a very large system of higher education and to create a large pool of men and women equipped with robust scientific and technological capabilities, we developed a population that had these capabilities, sensitive humanist and philosophical thought, and profound creativity, and this really became an education revolution in our country. The initial catechism in education policy that I used to recite as minister when I came into what was then called the HRD ministry, and that dominated our educational system for many decades, were 2 E's: expansion and equity. Expansion in the number of institutions and equitable access to them for those who had previously been denied educational opportunities because of their caste, their gender, their religion, or their region. In the process, though, we realized we were not focusing enough on the 3rd E, which was excellence, but there were shining exceptions. Today, Americans speak of our IITs with the same reverence that they used to accord to MIT. The image of India has changed from that of a backward developing country to a sophisticated land that produces computers and computer experts and engineers. In fact, I remember I was at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam one day when an anxiously perspiring European approached me saying, you're Indian, can you help me fix my laptop? You know, the assumption immediately, the old assumption was that every Indian must be a snake charmer or a sadhu. Now all Indians are software gurus and computer geeks. Now in 2022, when I recall my days as a young graduate, I think of how few were the options available to us in our college days, in the 60s or 70s, as compared to the plethora of opportunities presented to graduating youngsters nowadays. Wider options to study different courses, different subjects, wider employment opportunities to prepare themselves for, and especially in higher education, there are so many more subjects available to pursue and courses that didn't exist in my college days, as well as on-campus recruitments from companies and professions that had not been dreamt of in my youth. Evolution means that India must keep up with the world. The IITs have now launched certificate programs in artificial intelligence and machine learning. One has set up a center for artificial intelligence. IIT Madras offers courses online. They have 14,000 students learning artificial intelligence online. At its very foundation, our Prime Minister, Nehru, called IITs India's future in the making. And now young professionals from these institutions are indeed making global history. The challenge is that many believe, and many employers particularly believe, that these remain islands of excellence in a general sea of mediocrity. And this is why, as Cardinal Newman's critics would point out, we still have a long way to go for that fourth E that I would want to add to this catechism, and that is the E of employability. To meet the forces of the market, the demands of research, the pursuit of usable knowledge, and the imperative of building an equitable society. We're suffering from a systematic problem of skill mismatch between qualifications and jobs available, or even jobs undertaken. The skill mismatch has seen marked improvement in certain sectors over time, but chronic problems persist. I remember reading with horror about an advertisement issued by the Madhya Pradesh Police Department when they advertised 14,000 constable posts. 9 lakh candidates applied for these 14,000 jobs, including nearly 10,000 engineering graduates, a dozen PhD holders, 1,90,000 graduates, and 15,000 postgraduates, whereas the minimum qualification for a constable post was just a higher secondary education. There are similar anecdotes for every menial job advertised by the railways, the state and central governments, the public sector enterprises. Why? Because we are releasing graduates into an ecosystem that does not know how to use them. They settle for a constable post as an alternative to frying pakoras, as some who ought to know better have advised them to do. Therefore, even as I speak to you, sorry about the political intrusion, as someone who has benefited from a liberal education, right from my schooling through to my time in university, I do recognize that naturally there's a desire in India to make higher education more useful, more utilitarian, to link it to the needs of what we hope will once again be a rapidly growing economy in a globalizing world. Now, this is an argument that I understand and empathize with, particularly in a society where just last year, unemployment stood at a 46-year high. In fact, last year, the record figures for unemployment were the highest ever recorded since we started keeping numbers. Now, economic growth has slowed to a crawl, and the devastating impact of the recent pandemic is likely to compel all of us to explore avenues to make up for the devastating economic losses and the more hostile jobs market that followed, while also bolstering our preparedness to weather such turbulence in the future, because many epidemiologists say that this may not be the last pandemic in our lifetimes. After all, as I'm sure many will be quick to point out, a university graduate employed, say, as a salaried professional is likely to have been far more secure and better off during the pandemic than, say, an artist or an actor or a commentator on 18th century poetry. Now, while this is a fair concern, which I completely empathize with, I would partly counter it by arguing that what our higher education system literally aspires to do, and one could argue what liberal education is supposed to aspire to do, is to essentially equip you for any job that you might get. As I've often pointed out in addressing some of our engineering institutions, we produce 5 lakh engineers a year in India, and 66% of them end up in jobs that do not require an engineering degree. And that's either because their degree is not relevant to the jobs that are available, or because the quality of the education that they had is not good enough for pure engineering jobs. To put it plainly, to my mind, if our universities abandoned the pursuit of liberal arts for more technical and utilitarian needs in the post-COVID world, this would not hold our graduates in good stead. The principal challenge that would be prompted by universities discarding the liberal arts for more technical and utilitarian objectives is that it will leave our countries with a generation of graduates who are trained to look at problems of the world through absolute and non-negotiable principles. This works, this doesn't work. This switch turns off, this switch turns on. There's only one way of doing things and no other. Now, the danger of this kind of thinking, which comes out of many engineering and scientific disciplines, was borne out a decade ago when an Oxford University study claimed that of all those associated with terrorist incidents between 1990 and 2005, they did a very detailed study of every single person involved, 96% were engineers. So though no one was saying that most engineers are terrorists, they did draw the conclusion that most terrorists are engineers. And I don't know if that study has held up well in the multiple terrorist attacks that have occurred since it was conducted. I don't know if many engineers came to Mumbai in 26/11, but the lesson is clear. A mind that is rigidly trained in either or binaries and unexposed to the humanities is more susceptible to political and religious fundamentalism. It is a short step from studying the predictable laws of engineering to following an ideology or a creed that also seems to the engineering trade mind to be infused with absolute and immutable laws. If our graduates were rooted in the idea that there's only one way to think and work, they are likely to apply that habit of mind and thought to their understanding of human beings, of politics, and of ideology, where only one worldview is true and right and everyone else is wrong, where only one worldview is patriotic and everything else is anti-national. To my mind, if our universities churned out legions of such graduates, it would certainly have a devastating impact on communities. I'll tell you an anecdote. I've been invited to do an awful lot of convocations. Perhaps some of you here have invited me as well. I must have done easily 40 to 50 in the last few years. And I try and ask, in between handing out the certificate and saying congratulations, I try and ask those who are either undergraduates or high school leavers what their subjects are, or what they intend to do. And I've been astonished by the very large number who say engineering or science. We're talking well over 90% of those who are coming up to the stage to collect certificates, the dean's list, the prize winners, and so on. I mean, the other interesting observation, by the way, is about 80% of the prize winners, maybe 90, are girls, are women. So the male species in our country should better watch out because they don't even come close. But that's a different observation. But on this one, they all want to study engineering or science. And what worries me about this is that given the kind of post-COVID world we've seen, where I fear that the increasing move towards populism, isolationism, and the economic and cultural backlash against globalization is only going to get accelerated, I fear that there's a process of deglobalization beginning to take place in the world, characterized by trade restrictions, the repatriation of production and supply chains, the hollowing out of international multilateral institutions. And at that time, people coming in with this very, very narrow mindset could have a devastating impact on all of us. Now, I've often pointed out, it's not my line, it's an old line, that the human mind is like a parachute. It functions best when it's open. right? Don't try and make the journey downwards in a closed parachute, right? So similarly, just as you don't want to jump off a plane with a parachute that will remain closed, we cannot produce graduates for today's world with a closed mind. Our traditional utilitarian approach in India has been to shove facts into children from school and college, make them memorize stuff which they will then regurgitate in their examinations. If this was already out of date when it was being inflicted on the likes of me, it is definitely totally out of date for our aspiring graduates today, because in the 21st century, in a world that's characterized by hostilities, stratified societies, narrow-minded identities, what we desperately need is not a well-filled mind. Today in the real world, you can find any fact you need with 2 clicks of a mouse. You don't need to have your mind full of facts and dates and formulae. What you need rather than a well-filled mind is a well-formed mind. That is, we need individuals who are able to react to unfamiliar information, to discover new information, to see patterns in information, to know how to understand things they never heard before, how to fit this into this pattern, how to understand the problems and dilemmas that information poses, and how then to identify solutions for these problems. You know, there was a study done by the Oxford Martin School, I think about 3 years ago, that predicted that 30% of the jobs in the world by 2030 will be jobs that do not exist today. Now, how can you educate young people for jobs that don't exist? By teaching them not what to think, but how to think. So they can make the new understandable, bring the distant near, make the unfamiliar familiar, and into something they can handle. A well-formed mind benefits far more from an appreciation of history or a knowledge of literature or a study of the way in which real human beings behave, rather than the world of certitudes, which is all that our technical education provides for. And that's why I'm going to go back to Cardinal Newman, despite having spent so many minutes giving his critics their due. Because as he presciently pointed out, I'll inflict a slightly long quote on you, but it's worth hearing. And this is 19th century language, but I'll quote his words exactly. That only is true enlargement of mind, which is the power of viewing many things at once as one whole, of referring them severally to their true place in the universal system, of understanding their respective values and determining their mutual dependence. Thus is that form of universal knowledge set up in the individual intellect and constitutes its perfection. Possessed of this real illumination, the mind never views any part of the extended subject matter of knowledge without recollecting that it is but a part, or without the associations which spring from this recollection. 170 years ago, and just listen to this, it makes everything in some sort lead to everything else. It would communicate the image of the whole to every separate portion, till that whole becomes, in imagination, like a spirit, everywhere pervading and penetrating its component parts and giving them one definitive meaning, just as our bodily organs, when mentioned, recall their function in the body, as the word creation suggests the creator and subjects a sovereign, so in the mind of the, what he meant is the educated person, but Newman in that book at that time used the word philosopher, so in the mind of the philosopher, but I'll say in the mind of the educated person, as we are abstractedly conceiving of him, the elements of the physical and moral world, sciences, arts, pursuits, ranks, offices, events, opinions, individualities are all viewed as one, with correlative functions, and as gradually by successive combinations converging, one and all, to the true center. Unquote. I warned you it was a long quote, but what an amazingly impressive way of delineating what a truly educated mind is. And it stood the test of 170 years in my book. Therefore, my submission to this distinguished gathering is that the future of our universities, indeed of our higher education system, lies in striking a careful balance between the utilitarian needs that our technical education is required to provide and the broader liberal aspects that will help our graduates expand their horizons and cultivate their intellectual sensibilities. In order for us to make this balance, however, there is a need to be cautious of and conscious of a more recent trend among policymakers to try and make liberal arts and humanities education, quote, more relevant, almost as if they're trying to reduce this branch of education into an exercise of producing more white-collar workers, the British used to call them babus, rather than producing deep-rooted thinkers. Equally, as we've seen in recent years, there is a very real threat of transforming liberal arts for more insidious purposes. To convert history, for example, into an instrument to legitimize a more Hindutva-aligned version of the past, or similarly transforming political science, or as some would say, entire political science, into lessons on chauvinistic nationalism, or even transforming a so-called obsolete English literature into communicative global language skills for prospective call center employees. Such exercises will not culminate in an expansion of the intellect, but on the contrary would constitute a travesty of our higher education system by failing to leave any room for the imaginative, the ruminative, the philosophical, and the theoretical. This also requires us to focus on the importance of the freedom of academic expression and to ensure a sacrosanct separation of powers and influence between our campus spaces and forces that would like to bend our higher education spaces for ulterior gain. There are dangers that have been highlighted by the famous Hindi scholar Purvanand, who in his own collection of essays on higher education that have also been published under the title The Idea of a University, has warned against the growing assault on academic spaces by right-wing forces in our country that are determined to establish an exclusionary and linear worldview and entrench narrow-minded chauvinistic dogmas on our campuses. To Purvanand, the impact of these assaults, which I'm sure all of you are aware of, even if we do not need to name them here, have a vitiating impact on the future of our democratic society because they undermine the capacities of our society to hold the ruling dispensation accountable. He makes an interesting dichotomy between the freedom of expression on the one hand and academic freedom on the other, arguing that while citizens do not inherently have the intellectual wherewithal to examine the claims of the powers which seek their consent to rule them, academics with their long engagement with knowledge have the tools to test the political and policy promises offered to people. So academics must share it with the public to help them take informed decisions. So they need freedom, not for their own sake, but for the good of society. That's the justification for academic freedom. So academic freedom, he argues, is more than just the freedom of expression. It is a basic necessity without which the business of knowledge cannot be conducted. All democracies, therefore, he says, resist the temptation of controlling the campus. Now, this is an argument that's well worth engaging with in today's India and in the context of understanding the future of India's universities. The truth is that in the globalized world that we live in today, in the diverse democracy that we are and must preserve and protect, our students are increasingly likely to be surrounded by others who do not necessarily subscribe to their point of view and may not agree with the same set of beliefs and convictions, or even the same set of cultural practices, culinary preferences, or customs that they affirm. In our own country, we've seen how the rejection of liberal cosmopolitanism has resulted in an increasingly fractured society, where many of those in leadership positions today are unable to look beyond our differences and regard our diversity as a problem that must be contained rather than celebrated. These are individuals with a monolithic view of the country as one of their own faith, of their own community, and of their own language, and by extension demand social conformity within our society. You know, I'm alluding to the Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan slogan. I think many of us understand that when you seem to be acting out of hatred or stereotyping of an entire people as the other with a capital O, the inherent lack of empathy has sadly become a distinguishing feature of India's contemporary leadership. There is a growing deficit of individuals who are able to look at people of other religions, other races, and other languages and actually recognize that ultimately we do have the same dreams, the same fears, and the same hopes. Sadly, too many are incapable of broadening their minds in a way that understands the myriad manifestations of the human condition, while at the same time appreciating the universality of human aims and aspirations. In producing the graduates among them, our universities, sadly, have failed us. It is vital that our universities are therefore courageous enough to remain as open and free spaces where dissent and multiple worldviews are welcome and cherished for their complexity and diversity, and which ensures that in our rambunctious, chaotic, and magnificent democracy, spaces and channels are kept open. These open channels must enable our students to engage in equal parts with what Cardinal Newman described as the image of the whole and each separate portion. The future of our universities must be rooted in developing a generation of leaders that is more ready to deal with the national and global order, a world where multiple realities can coexist, where alternate worldviews and convictions have to be encouraged and negotiated with, and where students are taught to look beyond themselves and their immediate surroundings to the reality of interdependence and peaceful coexistence with people who are not like them. As the British educationist Robert Anderson put it, the idea of a university which combines teaching and research and develops the general powers of the mind, as well as giving specialized training, has three possible fates. First, it could be extended with only minor compromises to all parts of a mass higher education system. But that makes excessive demands on resources and seems unnecessary for the many who just need vocational training. Second, he says one may declare the Humboldtian University is dead, consign it to the past, and fit all universities into utilitarian and managerial mold. That is how pessimistic critics see the trend of policy under many recent governments around the world. So you have engineering institutions, schools of architecture, schools of design, schools of management, everything very practical. You come out with that and you know exactly what kind of job you can apply for and so on. Though, as I said, many of our engineering graduates don't find engineering jobs. Thirdly, there can be more open acceptance, says Anderson, that universities have different missions, interpreting the idea of the university in different ways, on condition that access to research-led universities is fair and democratic, a stipulation unlikely to be met if they are privatized or allowed to charge market fees. The American example suggests that embracing differentiation is healthier than denying differentiation. The disinterested pursuit of knowledge and the ideal of a liberal education seems currently in better shape in America than in Europe, and I need hardly add, than in India. I would therefore suggest, and I know I've taken a long time, I'll try and bring this to a conclusion, that in tomorrow's India we try to see the idea of a university not as a fixed list of immutable or absolute characteristics, but as a set of tensions, in Anderson's words, permanently present, but resolved differently according to time and place. These tensions include those between teaching and research, between autonomy and accountability, between intellectual integrity on the one hand and socioeconomic relevance on the other. But they also feature legitimate debates in our country about benchmarking Indian universities against the international scholarly community and about their role in shaping our national identity and defending national culture. The idea of the university must reconcile the tensions between the inevitable connection of public universities with the state and private universities with the most powerful and richest corporations, versus the need to maintain critical distance between reproducing the existing social, economic, and occupational structure against expanding it from below by promoting the marginalized and excluded through affirmative action to ensure social mobility, between serving the economy versus providing a space free from intermediate or even immediate utilitarian pressures dictated by the job market. These all have to be faced and reconciled by every one of you running a university today. Above all, there is the chronic and permanent tension between universities as places devised to encourage open and critical attitudes against society's expectation that universities will impart useful qualifications and employable skills in the service of India's future. Evidently, in resolving these crucial tensions, a balance must be struck that seeks the impossible to reconcile seemingly incompatible objectives with the ethos of a commitment to a better future for India. We must be far-sighted enough to recognize that at its core, in a democratic society, our universities must evolve into spaces where an ideal version of democracy itself is allowed to thrive. In other words, our universities must become the staging ground for experiments in developing the most principled version of our democratic ethos, and by extension, a microcosm of what our democratic society one day could become. We cannot, of course, reach these ideals if we do not actively strive to ensure that our campuses are inclusive and representative. After all, no democratic model can sustain itself if it does not carve out spaces for all voices, no matter how big or small, to be heard. This is not just what we try to rectify through instruments like affirmative action and need-based scholarships programs, which are necessary in the more expensive private universities, and those are undoubtedly important, but a commitment to really taking stock of the barriers to access and inclusion that permeate all levels of our society. To use one example, during the peak of COVID, as classes rapidly shifted to the online medium, the transition showed or exposed, if you like, that we as a country have not sufficiently addressed a deep and pervasive digital divide that many families had to contend with. We live increasingly in a world brought to us by Facebook, Google, and Twitter. But we also live in a world in which 3.7 billion individuals do not have access to the internet, including 1 billion children for whom it will not be possible to either work remotely or learn remotely. According to UNESCO, only just over half of the households, 55%, have an internet connection. In the developed world, 87% are connected, compared with 47% in developing nations, just 19% in the least developed countries. These stark realities, along with other barriers like infrastructure deficiencies, basic access to electricity, reliable Wi-Fi, teachers equipped to use and teach digital curriculums, have resulted in insuperable barriers for our weak and marginalized, even forcing some of them to take extreme steps in their desperation. I have never forgotten one of the tragic stories from the early years, the early months of the COVID pandemic, the story of a class 10 student in Kerala, hailing from a Dalit family, a young girl who had been a class topper all her career. Under any other circumstances might have been set for a bright future. And she committed suicide. Why? Because as classes leapt online, her family, where the sole breadwinner was her father, he was a daily wage worker, he lost his job in the lockdown. They could not afford even a smartphone, let alone any internet connections. The communist government in Kerala, recognizing the problem, quickly started broadcasting online classes on a TV channel. But this family only had one little black and white TV set that had broken down, and with no wages, they couldn't repair the TV set. So this girl, who used to be the class topper, could no longer follow any classes. And the result was that she went off and decided to kill herself. Now, this is a horrific story, but I repeat it because it's a reality of the India we live in. Realities that educationists cannot afford to forget while we sit here protected by our privilege while discussing what a university means for all of us. It doesn't have to be this way. But I am saying that today we are all sitting together in one room after 2 years when that was not possible. I think it becomes very important for us to remember the next time something like that happens, we have to remember the excluded and make sure we don't offer an education that some of our students are unable to access. If they can't, we have to help them to have that access before we can offer it. The narrative that online education is here to stay also overlooks the great value of campus interactions for students across social classes, across regional divides, across religious divides, and the comradeship that arises from shared experience and shared learning. If our universities can be places where we can come together and develop a space where social barriers of class and caste are left behind, and where instead young Indians are given the tools to lead and empowered life, a space where narrow-minded and exclusionary identities are replaced by a willingness to accept differences and cherish the diversity of thought and belief, a space that is confident enough to look at its wealth of differences and diversities as a strength and not so insecure as to look at it as a weakness that must be rooted out, a space where the administration is attuned to the aspirations of the students, the next generation of India's leaders, and where these young minds, the engines of our democratic and pluralist society, are not subsumed only by personal ambition or the commercial rat race, but are invested in the success of those around them. If we manage to do all this, we can develop an idea of the university that remains open, inclusive, and representative, an idea which will become the engine of India. If we can manage to do this, then I'm confident that the India of the post-COVID world will be carried forward by a generation of leaders that will be able to take our country to new heights. I believe it can be done, and you, above all, are the ones that can help us to do it. Thank you for giving me a rather long hearing, and Jai Hind.
Having heard a very enlightening speech, now it is our turn to ask some questions and clarifications. To start with, I invite Father Subert S.J., Principal of Law College, St. Joseph's University, Bangalore. Please provide a mic for them to come here. Please come forward. Subert, that side.
Mr. Shashi Tharoor, thank you very much for that wonderful input that you have given to us today. And we are very enriched with these thoughts that you have spoken to us. I put down a few thoughts as you were speaking to us. We consider that the task of a higher education institution or an university is to disseminate of the knowledge and also creation of new knowledge. But we, the Christian colleges, would like to emphasize along with these two major tasks of academic excellence, of knowledge and skill development, we would like to also emphasize on character formation and social concern. Now this is our priority actually. But the NEP 2020 that has come along now emphasizes on uniform syllabus, uniformity in a country where there is so much of diversity, so many diverse cultures, languages, and knowledge. Sometimes we are forced to impart education that promotes one ideology and uniformity. The autonomy of higher education institutions is totally taken away now. Karnataka is one of the major major states which has tried to implement this NEP, and we are facing a lot of problems also along with this. And we experience constantly and acutely our freedom and our autonomy is taken away. So how do you advise us in this situation to respond to this NEP and other constraints that we face in the higher education, where our concerns are totally different from just knowledge and skill formation?
Thank you very much. I think that's an excellent question, and one which, as you can understand, my sympathies are entirely on your side of this particular debate. On the first part, obviously the ethical and moral impact of an education from your institutions is something I already alluded to very early in my remarks, so I did not return to it. That almost goes without saying. That's part of your mission. And I think that that is essential, and there's no quarrel there. But when it comes to the larger issue you raise of uniformity versus diversity, this is now, I think, one of the central challenges in Indian higher education. It is now becoming a battleground with arenas for the battle which are being fought in multiple locations. On college campuses, certainly, in academic policy institutions such as the UGC and the Ministry of Education, and in the Supreme Court, where we just had this whole question resulting on the question of the Karnataka hijab issue, resulting in a split verdict with two judges taking diametrically opposite stands, one saying that the only thing that matters is whether the girl is able to study, and the other one saying, no, what matters is uniformity. And I think you are looking at a situation where we are all participants in an ongoing debate which is yet to be resolved. I think our side of that debate has obviously got to be in favor of diversity. You know, the irony is that I am not a major critic of some of the government's emphasis on the glories of our civilization. I actually think that being proud of one's own civilization is essential for every country, every society. One should have it. But the problem starts with the definition of that civilization. For me, that civilization embraces all the influences that have come into our country, including from very many, I'm sorry to say, foreign sources. Some of which we absorbed and made our own, some of which we fought with, some of which were imposed, some of which were not. But they're all part of the magnificent tapestry that has been woven in modern Indian history of who we are today. We cannot deny the impact, especially sitting in Goa, we can't deny the impact of the Portuguese. We can't deny the impact of the Mughals in northern India, who did not remain foreigners. They came from abroad, but they stayed and assimilated. And every single Mughal monarch after the first one was the product of an Indian mother. And therefore the argument that they're foreign is preposterous, but there you are, that's one more debate. And we can't deny, therefore, the impact of the British either. And all of these have contributed to who we are today. And it seems to me that the great Indian genius, up to about 10 years ago, used to lie in assimilating the best of whatever we got from anywhere, and making it our own and making it something we could flourish with and grow with. That is now being resisted by this rather narrow-minded chauvinism that is unfortunately part of the officially encouraged dogma in our national ethos. And I think, honestly, you should have no apologies about fighting that. In your campuses, I think you should celebrate diversity in practice as well as in theory. It's not just something you teach in the classroom. You demonstrate it in your campus, with the student body, with the kind of people you have, the kinds of activities you encourage, the kind of topics you discuss, the kind of subjects you offer, everything. It seems to me it becomes very, very important. I actually had a girl come to see me. In fact, she was accompanying her uncle who had come for a meeting, who is a student of your new campus in Delhi, the Christ University campus in Delhi, which I have not been to, in Ghaziabad, in the National Capital Region. She was celebrating the extent to which the campus is an oasis, because, I mean, the city around is not a particularly salubrious place, Ghaziabad. But, and it's full of all the problems and prejudices and quarrels and tensions that have begun to afflict northern India. But she was celebrating the fact that she doesn't need to leave the campus, that there is an entire India within the campus that she is able to relate to and derive energy from and sustenance from. And that is a very, very valuable role that a campus can play. If it has such an integrated vision, that vision must be imparted to the students, as I say, not just through what you teach in the classroom, but the life you give them on the campus, outside the classroom. And I encourage you all to bear that very much in mind in your leadership of your institutions.
The second question from Father Maria Anthony Raj, Principal of Sacred Heart College, Tirupattur Autonomous, that is from Tamil Nadu.
Good morning, sir. I'm from Maria Anthony. I'd like to thank you for your well-scripted lecture. You touched upon Cardinal Newman's idea of education, and how we have to go from expansion, quality. IIT should not be an island of excellence institutions where everybody has to become institute. But having said that, I have a question regarding NEP. Will the new educational policy be implemented? We have serious problems with regard to entrance exam, multiple entry and exit after joining the higher education. In Tamil Nadu, government is vehemently opposing this new educational policy. On the other hand, the assessing agencies are indirectly asking us, how are you prepared to implement this NEP? We are in a confusing state. How to go about in this scenario? What is your take?
I genuinely believe a compromise ought to be possible. I'm aware of the problem. And I know the problem arose already in our time when I was in government. Because the problem was that how do you evaluate marks? Increasingly, because of the pressure of our population, scarcity of available options in the best institutions, the old subjective measures of admission have given way to a blind regard for marks. In fact, Delhi University is notorious for having cut-offs at 99.5% and so on at various popular subjects. Now, what that means, however, is that people who are coming out of so-called easy boards, I'm sorry to say Kerala has a reputation for giving a lot of people 199, who might not have scored even 90 in, say, Delhi or Calcutta. So each system has its own reputation. But the problem is, you could evaluate a student's application in the old days subjectively and say, well, that student from Kerala has 99, but this chap from Calcutta managed 92. He must be better than that student from Kerala. Now, you can't do that anymore because if you're objectively looking at numbers, and there are court rulings obliging you to look at numbers, you have to have one standard yardstick. And so, for example, my old college, St. Stephen's, was admitting an awful lot of Keralites and rejecting an awful lot of Delhi students, and a lot of resentment was building up. Now, one of the solutions that we also thought would be a good one was to have a standard-setting national exam that everyone could take and which would have one ranking or one set of markings that the whole country could accept because everyone took it and there was no question of different standards in different states and so on. And particularly when it came to medicine, which is, as you know, the area with the greatest scarcity of seats, we have a ridiculous situation where not even 5% of those who qualify for medicine are able to find seats in medical colleges. It's the most shocking situation, and I have inveighed against this as a policymaker. I really blame the cabal, the stranglehold of the Medical Council of India, which has managed to preserve its monopoly by restricting and denying opportunities for young Indians, particularly poorer Indians, to get a good education in the medical sciences. It really is little short of a crime in my view, but that's a totally different debate. But in that area in particular, it was felt that we should have a standard examination to get in, so there'd be a common yardstick. Now, that's how the NEET exam was devised. The Tamil Nadu government, however, and it's partially because of their own passion for federal autonomy, saw this as an encroachment upon states' rights. But secondly, they also began to see that Tamil medium students who had studied and were very good science students in many of their, particularly rural areas and other educational institutions, were faring badly in the national examination. And they decided this is therefore a discriminatory examination that was set by people who had studied differently and were trying to get their own kind of people to pass exams. This then became a standoff, and Tamil Nadu decided to disallow NEET in Tamil Nadu. And it became a major standoff with institutions saying, but we don't offer the kind of courses that can equip people to take this national examination. What will they do? And Tamil Nadu saying, you can't do this in our state. And this has become a very unpleasant situation. And I understand fully your dilemma. The compromise that I would personally, if I were in government, be attempting to negotiate, would be to persuade Tamil Nadu to allow universities and exam centers to continue with the present system for all those who intend to study and practice in Tamil Nadu, and perhaps even in the Tamil language. But to have the national examination available to those whose ambitions are national and international. Otherwise, a student in Tamil Nadu starts off with a major disadvantage against all the other states, because they're the only ones who can't compete on national examination, and therefore their qualifications will be deemed inferior anywhere else in the country. This is the compromise that ought to be found. So you offer both and say, if you have passed in this particular kind of examination, you can work and practice. Your medical license will only be valid to practice in Tamil Nadu state. Whereas if you pass that one, then you can be a doctor practicing anywhere in India. And then let the students choose. My own guess is 90% of the students will want the nationally recognized qualification. But the Tamil Nadu government stand is very, very strong. And at this stage, it's a political issue between them and the central government. And you are unfortunately what they call the collateral damage.
Next is Dr. Alvin from St. Aloysius College, Autonomous, Mangalore. Anybody else, they can raise their hands, and after this, you can come and introduce yourself and ask the question.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Dr. Shashi Tharoor. It has been a dream come true, and listening to you and your incisive and insightful address on the idea of university. You have made a survey of how the education system has been. And today, I think time has come to redefine education itself. I would like to ask two queries, and I would like to know your impressions, your idea about, most of the time people say that it is going to be a minority narrative, that people ask for grants from the state, and there has been dwindling of grants to higher education institutions or education itself in the last few years. And what should be, according to you, the state share of resources to supporting higher education and schooling itself, number one. Secondly, your experience of learning about other institutions, especially internationalization of the curricula, looking about the universities, foreign universities and all that, with your experience, the new things that are coming up, redefining formal education in terms of incubation, ideas, startups, products, IPR-related issues, and patenting and all that, bringing it into the whole scenario of higher education, into formal education. What do you think with the demographic, component that we have in India, how to incorporate into, and it is also one of the criteria or parameters of assessing higher education institutions. How do you think that it can be incorporated in a scenario, Indian scenario, to bring it into as a parameter, as assessment? And do you really think that time has come that you have to completely revamp the higher education scenario, the whole idea of university, whole idea of colleges or higher education itself? I want your opinion on this, your take on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, that's a major question with a number of aspects to it. And I'll try and address three of the aspects in turn very briefly. On the first one, the question of state resources. This is such a central problem in our education debates because our country has historically tended to look to the state for resources. I still remember in 1972 to 5 when I studied at St. Stephen's College, my monthly fee was 15 rupees. The rest of the genuine costs of a top-class education were being met by a grant from the University Grants Commission. And I don't think it's gone up that much. I mean, of course, proportionately with inflation and so on, has gone up. But that's the level to which the state has entered the thing. When you look at research universities today, you will be shocked. I mean, I was shocked when I was minister. I got some numbers that in India, 90% of all research is financed by the government. Whereas in the OECD countries, that is the rich developed countries, 75 to 80% of research is financed by the private sector. Now, yes, their systems are different from ours, but it raises two obvious thoughts. One is, can we keep depending so much on the state? And with that, doesn't there come a whole lot of baggage, limited resources, over-bureaucratization, too much of intrusive red tape, and so on and so forth? Versus, can we afford to let the private sector get a free ride? Because most of the products of this research then go in to benefit the private sector. Why are they not paying for more research? I wanted, and I said this in a couple of speeches as minister, I didn't have a very long innings in that job, but where I was there, I said, listen, we must absolutely challenge the private sector to do more, to contribute more to national well-being. I'll give you a typical example in America you asked about startups and innovation. Very many companies in classic places of education institutions like Boston or the Raleigh-Durham Triangle in North Carolina, or of course Silicon Valley itself, many companies have gotten to the habit that they come up with a spark of an idea, they'll go to a university campus, and they'll say to the professors, do you have a bunch of graduate or postdoctoral students who can research this and see if it's viable and make it happen? We will finance the research, you do it at your university. If they come up with a product that we can make and sell, we will give you a share of the royalties, 15%, 25%, whatever you negotiate, and your name will also go up. And many universities actually run a lot of their graduate programs with this kind of funding. And very often the students get not only the thrill of confirming a discovery or creating something new, but often job prospects multiply immediately thereafter. We don't do anything like this in India. Why not? So I'd like to see much more of this happening, no question about it. On your second question about internationalization, I have to say you're totally right. But again, the trend in India has been completely in the wrong direction. When I was a student in university in the early 70s, we had a large number of foreign students, principally from other developing countries, African countries, especially those that were, for example, people from today's Zimbabwe, in those days Rhodesia, were fleeing the white regime there, and they were getting scholarships from the government of India to come and study on Indian campuses. There were Zimbabwean students in Delhi University. There were Mauritius students, because Mauritius didn't have enough higher education campus. There were students from a number of other Southeast Asian, Middle Eastern countries. A lot of people from today's United Arab Emirates had their higher education in India in the 60s and 70s, because there were no college, literally no colleges available there. Now that has been completely reversed because of two phenomena. First of all, you had these countries developing, acquiring the money, the resources. After the oil revolution, UAE was literally able to buy the best campuses around the world and park them in the UAE. Now you can get a high-class American university degree studying in those countries, in Dubai or Abu Dhabi. Whereas in India at the same time, the growing pressure of population meant that the number of seats available were very, very few. And people said, we have to offer these seats to our own countrymen and women, and therefore we can't offer it to foreign students. So internationalization has gone down dramatically. The irony is, this is a time also, it's coincided with the period where international ranking systems have become much more recognized and in vogue. So you've got things like the Times Higher Education Supplement. Their rankings are now worldwide recognized. There's the Quacquarelli-Simons QS rankings. Their rankings are perhaps the next one that's got worldwide recognition. Now, when I was minister, I called the Times Higher Education people to the ministry and asked them to explain to us the basis of their rankings, because it was obvious to us that there was no Indian institution, not just in the top 200, there was nothing in the top 2,000 in those days. This is 10 years ago, or 8 years ago, 9 years ago. So I called them, and these fellows came, and they said, look, our system is very clear. We give 25% weightage to research, 25% weightage to citations in published journals of research done at the university, 25% weightage for internationalization, and 25% for something else I can't remember now. But on the first three categories, we were down, because most Indian institutions have had such a strong demarcation between research institutions on the one hand and teaching institutions on the other, that our research institutions don't teach and our teaching institutions don't research, and as a result we score zero. We were best colleges. In those days, even the IITs were not getting much in that first 25%. As a result, citations, we were not scoring. Also in India, a culture of publication and of citations in peer-reviewed journals had not yet developed. I think in the last decade, that's one thing that Indians have become super conscious of, but we weren't yet in those days. So citations were very few. And as for internationalization, we would come close to the bottom, because we barely had enough space for the Indians applying. So there were very few foreign students and very few foreign faculty. Now, I have a good friend in fact, a young protege of mine whom I met at Harvard when he was a student there, Professor Rajkumar, who founded Jindal University in northern India, a private university, very expensive. But he figured out how to game the system. So he has managed to attract on fairly generous but Indian salaries, large numbers of foreign faculty. And as a result, he is able to get points for internationalization that other campuses don't have. And the Indian government, in turn, has been very flexible in giving him visas. So he has, I mean, in some of his faculties, he has like 60% foreign teachers. Americans, British, Germans, and so on are coming and teaching at Jindal University. And that suddenly gets him, so he is now the #1 ranked university in India in the QS rankings, because he's managed to score in all these areas. Now, that's just one thing I'm saying. I'm not saying all of you have to follow that example, but certainly you must remember that if you want to be peer ranked globally, these are criteria you ought to be aware of. Final thought, when you say, should we change the idea of the university? I have, as you know, articulated a very clear, I hope, vision of what I believe should be the ideal Indian university. And there's nothing there right now that is already beyond your reach. In fact, many of you are probably well on the way to achieving that ideal. But that's something you can do. I don't think you need to reinvent beyond that. Where I believe we need to do more is in the regulatory side. Our higher education generally is over-regulated and under-governed. So I don't want to have a body sitting in Delhi telling you how large your campus should be, how many classrooms you should have, what the size of square meters of your classroom should be, whether you should have a playground, how many faculty, what subjects to teach, prescribe the syllabus, sometimes even the text. That's absurd. That is not what a university should be required to do. But what you should have is a system weighted heavily towards assessing through objective criteria the educational outcomes of your institutions. I would rather have a system of accreditation to begin with and gradings of outcomes later in terms of results, academic excellence, job placements, and so on. Those are things that would actually create better governance in the system. And I'm not a market fundamentalist, far from it. I mean, I would consider myself far more a sort of social interventionist when it comes to some of these things. But I would say that this kind of system would be far better at guiding the prospective parent or student as to how good a college or university is to fulfill their dreams than the present system of just saying that this campus has this many rooms and this many faculty and follows these rules very strictly, because that may not be any clue as to how useful that college will be for the child's overall intellectual development. So these are my thoughts in response to your multi-pronged question.
Next is Father Joseph Xavier, the former principal of Loyola College, Chennai.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for your thought-provoking lecture on the idea of university. My question is based on your response to your question. See, in a recent judgment by the Judge Chandrachud on reservation, he made a statement. Mark is not the only indicator of capacity. He also referred to the way there have been marginalization of the society. So reservation is something that is very, very important in our Indian ethos. Now, the present system of NEET has clearly indicated that money power has more influence than capacity of people, especially students. Now, there is a vast difference between rural and urban students. And our country has many systems of education. We have the state educational boards, the central educational boards. In all these common interest tests that were conducted, most of those who get through are from the central board and who are rich. Now, given the context, a common entrance test where NEP clearly states merit alone is the only indicator of admission to higher education institutions, I would like to know how you distinguish between two types of students. Don't you think that it is better that each state is left to itself for developing its own educational system with its own culture, with its own way of doing things? And just to tell you, Tamil Nadu has done much better in education and even in terms of capacity building. So given all this, how do you justify a common entrance test?
So this is a central dilemma, and I realize that I don't need to repeat what I already said in answering the colleague from Tirupathur's question. But without repeating it, let me add two things. There is a problem in evaluating the sort of two contradictory statements. Marks are not the only indication of merit, and merit should be the only indication of a student's worth. Because there is a contradiction implicit, because how do you evaluate merit? To take a totally irrelevant example, but not entirely irrelevant, we've just had a ruling by the Supreme Court in Delhi that my old alma mater, St. Stephen's, can no longer decide to admit students on the basis of interviews. Now that was how they would, once they were obliged to follow the cutoff policy, they would still interview people over the cutoff and choose the person who seemed to have understood issues and to articulate them better and more coherently and more smartly than somebody who had clearly passed an examination, got a high score, but was either inarticulate or came across as unintelligent in their ability to express their thoughts and so on. So the college would discriminate that way. Now the courts have ruled, the Delhi High Court ruled, and then the Supreme Court upheld it, that St. Stephen's can no longer have that discretion. It must follow Delhi University's rule, which says that only marks will apply. Now that has raised the other dilemma that I described earlier, which was this question of when the marks are awarded differentially in different states, what do you do? I still believe, Father, that we have a challenge for those who wish to study further or work outside their states. Because you're quite right, Tamil Nadu has done an outstanding job of capacity building in the state. Their school and college education system is outstanding. But many of those people who have ambitions to work outside Tamil Nadu find that they cannot be benchmarked meaningfully for their capacities by either postgraduate admissions or by employers in other states. So you need some objective yardstick. I have no difficulty with your proposition that states should be allowed to develop their own educational systems. But the corollary of that must be that somebody who has only passed a state board and has only done state-level examinations can only therefore work and practice in the state. And in a country where freedom of movement is a constitutional right, where everyone has national aspirations, certainly coming from Kerala, where the majority of our workforce is outside our state, I can tell you that for a state like Kerala, the ability to have some capacity to be benchmarked nationally becomes indispensable. That is the challenge. I think in principle one can agree with you. In practice, surely you want to give the students the choice as to what kind of future they see for themselves. If the students want to study further or live and work beyond their state, then they must have something to show how they fare against other students of other states. That is the central problem in a large federal system like ours, because each state has its own culture, its own marking practices, even its own level of difficulty. I can tell you, within Kerala, for example, a student with 90% in the CBSE is probably academically more sound than a Kerala board student with 99. Because simply the level of questioning in those examinations, you can just look at the question papers, you can see the difference. So that is again, if even within one state there are these differences, you can imagine what the problem is when it looks like at the national level.
Father, please introduce yourself and ask the question.
I am Father Joby Joseph from St. Anthony's College, Shillong, Meghalaya. My question is not directly connected to higher education, but as long as higher education hinges on politics, it has got an effect. I hope you will answer this question. In the recently completed party election held, most of us so-called educated thought we were seeing a dawn of a change or a door to change. But But your party men thought maybe differently. So my question is this: is this a reflection of a passive consensus to the majority right-wing power of thoughts and ideas? If you can answer it.
I'm going to have to pass on that question, Father. There is a video camera running. People have mobile phones in their hands. I have to dread what may show up on WhatsApp tomorrow. So I'll pass on this. All I can say is you're right that I was the candidate of change, but very clearly the system and the people who, the handpicked electorate in that system, decided that they didn't want change. Now, I will say, though, that many have said, and I take heart from this, that given the nature of the electorate and the nature of the stance taken by the entire establishment within the party, that it is little short of a miracle that I even got 1,072 who had the courage to defy that. And that even some of the invalid votes, we don't know what percentage, but a large number, were actually cast for me by people who were so enthusiastically in favor that they wrote no against Mr. Kharge's name, or they cancelled out his name and ticked mine, all of which were deemed to be invalid, because no other marking on the papers permitted. One enterprising voter, whom I assume was of the fairer sex, decided to draw a heart around my name before ticking mine. So I ended up, as a result, with one more invalid vote for that. So these are stories I heard from the counting agents, but that's life. And but nonetheless, so somewhere upwards of 1,072 people did have the courage to give me the votes, and I take a lot of heart from that. But in every institution, there is resistance to change, and I dare say the Catholic Church is probably no exception. You must have anecdotes you can tell. Change comes slowly. In any institution, whether it's an education institution, a political party, or a government, or anything, with change, people know what they are afraid of losing. No one is entirely sure what they're going to gain. And so you have to have a capacity to embrace uncertainty in a positive light if you want to accept change. And that takes a certain kind of spirit which is usually not there within the establishment in any institution.
Father Rex, please introduce yourself.
I am Father Rex Angelo, Principal St. Xavier's College, Jaipur, Rajasthan, in which your friend Ashok Gagloji is ruling, at least for the time being. Sir, I am trying to take you back to higher education from politics.
I'll refrain from commenting on that time being. But
So back to higher education from politics. You rightly pointed out that the government is spending a huge amount of our resources, in other words, the people's taxpayers' money, on different schemes, including higher education. But unfortunately, as you rightly pointed out, all these huge amounts of money are spent for elite institutions, IITs, IIMs, etc., and centers of national importance, etc. Now, the taxpayer, all of us are, and then we also pay education cess for everything we buy. That is taxpayers' money. Now, this money doesn't reach back to the commoner. There are about 48,000 colleges, arts, science, and commerce colleges, where the government is obliged to give grant in aid, because, in my humble opinion, it is the duty of the government to educate its own population. Now, government is pushing more and more private players, corporates, into the higher education sector. As a result, they have their own interests, as you know, that they would like to have more of their products. They want finished packets products from our colleges, and then they want patents, they want new inventions, etc., which will suit their interests. Now, by denying grant in aid to some of the rural colleges, some colleges, like some Jesuit colleges, having clear-cut option for the poor, the Dalits, the tribals, who will sponsor their money, their salary? Unless you go for those people or offer those courses which will be paid only by the rich, in which case, in the long run, poor people will be eliminated from the system of education and they will be forced to go for skills. you develop another category of people, the indirect or another way of caste system is imposed on them. Now, is it not the duty of the government to educate its own population? Is it not the duty of the government to sponsor educational system? And I am afraid such questions are not often raised in the parliament. Thank you.
Sir, you're quite right, Father. I mean, I concede that there are fundamental ideas of education as a public good for which the state has a responsibility. However, you also have to look at the realities of public finance. Both state governments and central governments are essentially financially increasingly unviable institutions. I can tell you very frankly that they're all living essentially on the good name of the government of India, that is, by borrowings. Not one government in India is actually solvent. My own state government is amongst the worst. I mean, they cannot pay salaries by October. They are borrowing money to pay salaries. Now, in these situations when revenue is scarce, you can only give a static amount of money, and as a result, the money that is given for education turns out to be inadequate for the purposes of educating. It seems to me we have absolutely no choice. I know people in my party will not agree with me because we tend to want to see the government doing more and spending more. But it seems to me we have no choice but to encourage the private sector to come in and to grant. I mean, it's interesting that in the American example, Father, you have a situation where many American private universities are so lavishly funded by generous donations and endowments that no student actually who's admitted misses out because of means. You'll find people from really poor backgrounds, including foreign students, getting full scholarships, paid for by some anonymous benefactor's money that has piled up, and now the interest alone is enough to grant these scholarships. We haven't reached that stage in any Indian institution to be able to do that. But increasingly, I think the private universities must be obliged to do that. We must create by law a situation where once you admitted somebody on the basis of merit, that student is entitled to an education even if his or her parents cannot afford it. And they have to go out of their way to raise the money to finance such scholarships, otherwise they have no business being in the education business. Then as far as the government institutions are concerned, they should indeed finance it, but the result will be that in more and more cases, the government institutions will be seen by the markets, that is by the students, the consumers, who are the students applying, as offering an inferior product because they're less well-funded. Now, I don't at all believe that my 15 rupee a month education was inferior to the 15 lakh rupees semester education that a Jindal University or a Shiv Nadar University or whatever charges. But the truth is that if the poor student can get that 15 lakh education for 15 rupees, like a government institution offers, then it's a level playing field and I needn't worry. We do have to somehow create that by both policy intervention and law when necessary. There is sadly a lot of uneven application. There's also a lot of corruption in our system where the regulators are not always fairly imposing the standards required by the regulations, and where when money changes hands, certain things are overlooked and so on. We've been hearing and seeing all this. I think you just have to carry on with your ethical code and your own moral character and do the best you can. But you have pointed to a genuine dilemma for which I don't think there's a simple answer beyond the one that I've suggested, but getting there and making it work requires resources we may not have available.
The last question.
Yes.
Father, please introduce.
Father Sebastian from Tanjavur, Annai Velangani Arts and Science College Secretary and Correspondent. First of all, I would like to appreciate your presence here. You are an interesting person, intelligent politician, a deep and profound personality that we have in our country. Don't be worried that you were defeated as a party president, but you will be elected as Prime Minister of this nation one day. For your good vision and the mission that you have. A lot of questions have been raised and I'm very happy. I was thinking about it, a couple of fathers raised that question, which I'm not going to repeat. One question, in some states, some textbooks have been changed. History textbooks have been differently written, number one, in which religious facts have been distorted. Number two, at least history and religion, all of us know something, we can correct somewhere. but they are distorting the scientific information. Science has become a big mocker in this country now today. That's why research we are not able to do. I'm happy that you pointed out in the recent years, a lot of Indians are doing research. I know you are up to date. That's why you are making that statement. There are many people do not know this. Our country has not improved because we have not done scientific research. That's an important question. You are aware of it. So the scientific research temper is not there and they are distorting it. What are you going to do about it? Number two, another question, simple observation. Liberal arts. Only one arts university, Jawaharlal Nehru University, used to be on top in this country, apart from the science institutes. Indian Institute of Science, IIT Madras, IIT Kanpur, Mumbai, all these are top. But Jawaharlal Nehru University used to be on top. But now it is under control. What is going to happen to this country? Thank you.
I think you have a possible sideline in politics if you're interested. Well, I mean, these are questions. The second one, which I will take as a rhetorical question, there are obvious policy implications we all need to look into. On the first aspect, there are some rather serious issues that the question raises, which I think all of us have to address. Father spoke about, essentially, if I'm not being fair in summarizing, you can correct me, the distinction between the role of the government in financing higher education and the other institutions that exist. And the history textbooks being distorted because, again, the contradiction there, Father, is that the history textbooks are being distorted because of governments. So on the one hand, you want to rely on governments to educate your people. On the other hand, the price you pay is the government will get its political agenda into your textbooks. Now, I would argue that a textbook is essentially a device. It's a tool. It is by no means offering the definitive answer. So if you're offering students a textbook because the law or the government obliges you to do so, then it seems to me that your next step is to have a teacher who has read beyond that textbook and can thereby, in his or her instruction, say that though the textbook says this, you, the student, should be aware that there is such and such a book that says that there is such and such a document that has been unearthed that shows this, etc., and broaden the scope. The teacher should not be reduced to somebody who is just parroting a textbook. And I think the answer and the hope that lies for all of us who are dismayed by the government's attempt to impose a certain view of Indian history and civilization on our campuses and on our high schools. The answer to that lies in teachers having the right outlook and the breadth and range of understanding that they are not confined to the limitations of the textbook. So if the government is going to be the body that you feel should be primarily responsible for the health and well-being of your society, I have no problem with that, but do not ever think the government should be solely responsible. In education, the individual campus and the individual teacher have an enormous contribution to make that gives the textbook its proper place in the overall firmament. I honestly believe that for me, in my college education, I would put the textbook way below the list of influences I had, which included teachers, fellow students, extracurricular activities on campus, things I read beyond the syllabus and were interested in, debates and arguments I had with friends that helped shape and refine my own views, and only finally, perhaps, the textbooks and the examinations. And I say this with no sour grapes. I was the university topper throughout. But I say this as something which, to my mind, will show the average student the place of the textbook in his or her mind. So rather than bemoaning the fact that the textbook is so distorted, which it is, in some states, in some cases, it is, let us say that we should have teachers and we should recruit teachers and, if possible, keep training teachers to be people with broad minds, wide horizons, a capacity to read and absorb alternative points of view, and to share the existence of alternative points of view with the student body. If they can do that, then to me the answer to your question is self-evident. Thank you all very much. It's been a great audience. I've enjoyed the questions too.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very erudite deliberations. And I'm sure your deliberations and real-life experiences would serve as a lighthouse to achieve all our academic and administrative endeavors in our institutions. I request Dr. Father Keith D'Souza, Rector, St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, to honor our respected speaker, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, with a small token of gratitude. Thank you, Father. I now sincerely request our moderator, Reverend Dr. Father Abraham Wetiyankel Mani CMI, Vice Chancellor, Christ deemed to be University, to put forward his observations and comments. Some comments, Father. Okay. Okay, you. So I invite Dr. Father M. Arokasamy Xavier, Principal, St. Joseph College Autonomous, Tiruchirappalli, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning, dear sir. First of all, I sincerely thank you for accepting our humble request to be here and to deliver your speech on the idea of university, key developments in the higher education ecosystem and the role of universities and colleges in promoting liberal education. Sir, really we are proud that you are an alumnus of our institutions, first of all. And yeah, we are really proud. Now, you are a multifaceted personality, really, that we could understand from your speech. Lively, no, you are an enlightened intellectual and a genuine leader. We could understand the experience which we had now could be an example for that. And it is really indeed an inspiring, very lively speech with full of jokes, not only jokes, also with full of anecdotes, with statistics, with facts and figures. Of course, you started your speech with Cardinal Newman's beautiful quotation. And of course, you dealt at length on the ideal of university, the idea of university. It was superb, really superb. And of course, with apt quotes, you also explained the purpose of university, like freedom or autonomy or increasing internationalism, all those things you all. And you also invited us to think about the balance between the pursuit of knowledge and the saleable skills. Really good idea, good idea. And of course, you also emphasize two ideas, that is expansion and equity. That's what we are doing in our institutions. Really, we are proud that we are doing. Your clear perspective and approach and treatment to the topic are excellent, excellent. You are beautifully highlighted the challenges with statistics like the employability and the importance of liberal arts, which of course some of the institutions are thinking about, but we do not know how to go about it. Yeah, so you have given us good idea for us, and we will reflect about it. And also you differentiated between the well-filled minds and well-formed minds, and you are one of the best examples of our institution that you are well-formed minded person. And of course, you also requested us to produce leaders with deep-rooted intellectual intelligence, all those things, fine. And you invited also to explore the possibilities to address the challenges. Of course, you raised your serious concern about the rising homogenization, of course, which is against freedom of expression and academic freedom, all those things, which we experience practically in all our institutions, Yeah. And also you underlined the aspect that academic freedom should be for society. That's what we are doing, at least in the Christian institutions, particularly in Catholic higher education institutions that we are doing. Also, we are aiming at helping the policy makers. We do not know how far it reaches them, but we are trying our level best. And you also raised the recent contemporary issues like these diversity. You looked at the diversity, not you, the politicians, how the politicians looked at the diversities as threat. Of course, it should be celebrated. The very gathering itself, you can see it is a celebration. That's what we look. We are coming from different parts of India, from different languages background, all those things. That itself, is a celebration. It's celebration. And also, our universities should be a place where dissent is allowed. That's what we are doing. We respect people's opinion, their dissent, even sometimes their dissent. And you also highlighted the aim of the university is to produce generation of leaders who could look at multiple realities, and those multiple realities could coexist peacefully. Of course, that is because of these institutions, because of our institutions, India is so far is peaceful. And particularly South India is very peaceful because more missionaries were working there earlier times. Now in North India also fine. Now, so that itself is a very fine example. And also you invited us to interpret the idea of university from different angles. Excellent talk. Yes, excellent, inspiring talk, sir. So thank you very much for being with us. Also, I would like to thank you for your enlightening the response. Very good, very good. Also, you ignited our minds with jokes. Even your jokes ignited our minds. Fine. And clarified our doubts, especially on diversities, on NEP, on merit, and all those things. Fine. So, thank you very much. Nice of you. Thank you. I also would like to thank Father Abraham and Father Anthony Arakel. Of course, all of you, dear participants. Thank you very much.
We shall have a group photograph with our esteemed speaker, Dr. Shashi Tharoor. So now we shall go for the tea, and thereafter you have been allotted your respective venues. So at 11:15 we shall go to our respective venues. There are 4 venues. 11:15 now. Yeah. So already they have to. Yeah. They have not purchased. So they'll receive it. No one is about to. Participants are requested to take the front seats. participants are requested to quickly settle themselves.
Check, one. Check, test.
And sister will need, and then you can give one to father, one to sister. Okay. You can come here. So, Father, with your due permission, we can begin the proceedings. So, a very warm good morning to all of you, and it is my indeed privilege and pleasure to invite you all to session 4, which is focusing on ERP for universities and higher education institutions, practices on learning outcomes, NEP processes, accreditation using ERP. We have our moderator, Dr. Father A. Rex Angelo, S.J., Principal, St. Xavier's College, Jaipur. I invite Dr. Sister G. Celine Sahai Mary, Principal, Fatima College, Autonomous, Madurai, to give the introduction of our moderator. Over to you, Sister.
Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3. A pleasant morning to one and all gathered here. I deem it a pleasure and privilege to welcome you all for the conference on ERP for universities and higher education institutions, practices on learning outcomes, NEP processes, accreditation using ERP. Automation technologies have recently garnered much attention in all types of industries, institutions, and organizations. The mechanical and boring jobs have been turned by them into lucid, efficient, scalable, and smart ones. ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, is one such automation that helps us transform the complex, time-consuming business processes into simpler processes. ERP integrates business activities by collecting, storing, managing, and interpreting large amount of data. ERP's main concept of common pooling of data facilitates a proper informational flow among the owners, workers, stakeholders of an organization. The continuous updation of data helps enterprises to track, check the status, and provide error-free transactions. The cloud data enables information common to all and ensures transparency. It is indeed a wonderful opportunity to explore into the new avenues of ERP and implement the same in an eclectic manner in the higher educational institutions, making e-governance easy and hassle-free. In such a venture, we have amidst us the most befitting person to lead us towards it. On behalf of the Xavier Board of Higher Education, I cordially welcome the resource person of the session, Dr. Prashant Bokar, Vice President, Mastersoft ERP Solutions, who is here to enlighten us on the various possibilities of implementing ERP in higher education institutions. Dr. Prashant is a person of varied capabilities. He is an enthusiastic teacher who has a decade-long experience as an assistant professor of computer science and engineering at GH Raisani College of Engineering, Nagpur. Sir is an avid researcher whose research area includes the contemporary software techniques like soft computing, optimization, intelligent transport system, data science. Apart from being a teacher and researcher, his eminence is evinced in the administrative offices that he has held so far, ranging from the person in charge of MIS, GHRC portal, and Center for Excellence in Data Science. It is to be noted that Dr. Prashant is a certified NABL internal auditor and data scientist. His long list of publications of more than 40 papers is in indexed journals and conferences exhibit his sound knowledge of emerging technologies in computer science. Added to this, he has published a book on intelligent transport system and has filed a patent. As a staunch believer of the fact that good education is the key to develop a nation, he reciprocates the same in inculcating innovative education in all his students. It is our privilege to have such an expert amidst us now. With immense joy, I welcome you, sir. It is also my honor to welcome the moderator of the conference, Reverend Dr. A. Rex Angelo S.J. from St. Xavier's College, Jaipur. He is the principal of St. Xavier's College, Jaipur, Rajasthan, and also the director of Xavier College Alumni. We are indeed too gifted to have him as our moderator. With immense delight, I warmly welcome all the participants who are here from far and wide to harvest the richest yields. I am sure we are going to have lots of fresh and unique takeaways. Once again, I welcome each one of you for this intellectual deliberation. Let God bless us all. Thank you.
Good morning, all of you. Once, an interview was conducted for an office assistant. So principal met many of them, and then he asked them to meet him one by one along with the manager, other staff. And then he told one person who was pleading for the job of office assistant, the principal told him that we are looking for a very responsible person. Then the man said, "Sir, in the last 10 years I have worked in 10 places, and whenever things went wrong, they said, you are responsible. So I am that responsible person," he said. Well, so far we have been using handwritten notes, diaries, records. Then we switched over to typewriter, then to keyboard. Now time has come for scanning, barcode and other computerized devices. As a result of it, there is a minimal human intervention. When machines take over, we don't need to have no chance of human errors. In fact, in our college, we are using the same ERP. It is the student who writes or types the personal data and all the relevant matters, and then it is on the record. The office people have no role to play except to go through the data, and then whenever they want the data to be retrieved, they go to that particular page allotted, earmarked to them. This process is used with minimal human intervention till it creates the TC. There are several modules this company has, Mastersoft has come forward with. and taking into consideration the present needs of the educational system in India, including the NEP 2020. They have included various modules, which also include NAC module. So it is nice that when many colleges are here, they have been called and they are also have sponsored this event. So I take it as my privilege to invite Dr. B. Prashant and his team to come over and make a presentation of their software, ERP. By the way, what is the expansion of ERP? Thank you. Enterprise Resource Planning. So planning is done by human beings, which is automated, and then various outputs are taken for our official purpose. Over to Dr. Prashant.
Sorry to be on the stage. Before Dr. Prashant starts it, I just wanted to provide a 5 minutes introduction on our organization. And touchwood, it has been really a blessing that, the father who is the moderator, is a person who is, who has experienced our ERP for a long time. So it's a really blessed, we are really blessed to have him over here. I just wanted to take you through our organization and then hand over to Dr. Prashant, who will be touching on the entire, how NEP processes or how you have the credit mobility and things like that. We first welcome all the delegates who have arrived here.
Can you please introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, I am Krishna Kumar. I am Krishna Kumar, and I am Vice President for the South region as well as SAARC countries for Mastersoft. Being a salesperson, also responsible for the entire process till the client is happy with us, and all the operations area also I get in connect with them. We very humbly welcome all the leaders who are present here, and we are thankful to the Xavier board for having provided us this opportunity to present you Mastersoft before you. We are also associated with a lot of your institutions already, and that is also one advantage we have. We actually work with institutions and help digitally transform the higher education segment. So whether it is we work when they are into the affiliated stage, slowly moving towards the autonomous stage, moving ahead into a cluster university or a deemed university or private university. That has been our experience for the last 22 years since we have been in the field of education. As all of you know, there has been a lot of changes happening in the higher education field, with a lot of new things coming in, like accreditations. Not only the accreditations what we have inside our Indian subcontinent, but also institutions going in for affiliations and accreditations with overseas organizations. So it has been a huge administrative job for the academicians, not only to teach and take care of the students, but also to manage the entire data, assimilate it, bring it to a format, and help the institutions grow ahead. So that is also changing. It keeps on changing every time. Whenever you prepare something, new things come in. The NEP, like we had a huge discussion about NEP. It was one of the major topics. So some states have adopted, some states are still into thinking about NEPs. But moving ahead, cross-departmental education or giving the choice to the students on what they need to inculcate and learn is an option which every institution has to go forward with, is what I think. So such kind of policy changes, as well as the hybrid learning, like we all had a huge impact of that during COVID times. Now again, UGC has been forcing on a certain percentage of online learning, of on-site learning, things like that. And also what I was talking about, the outcomes-based education, like what outcomes the students, learning outcomes, what we are teaching, what is coming out, and how they are being prepared for the future. The industry has been facing a lot of changes, the education industry. One is on the scaling up of the capabilities, whether it is the technology part, which currently most institutions have it in silos, moving into a completely integrated mode wherein the academic fraternity has the freedom to teach and concentrate on their students' improvements. The quality of education getting upgraded, so standardized learning processes, personalized learning processes, theoretical learning, which is again taken to the student directly through various means, ultimately resulting in the employability of the students. That is what everyone was discussing and everyone is thinking about, how the students will become employable. So interdisciplinary learning, everything has to come into that. And also it is the visualized learning or virtual offerings which an institution can put in for the students, apart from what we teach every day. What else you can bring in for the students through various mediums. And also, apart from all these things, the compliance management is one of the biggest area every institution has to look forward to. We actually call ourselves as a digital education universe, since we have the entirety of the solution built into our system. I'll just move fast over this. We have a 30+ modular structure, taking care of as your student just thinks about your institution, from that inquiry part, getting into the institution, the entire management of the student, till he takes his TZ and moves towards a convocation level. Then it also integrates for his placement activities, for his learning activities, for his other activities like hostel management or his performance improvements and things like that. Apart from all these, every institution has a non-academic area to manage, which is another huge area. Looking forward for their, streamlining their income system, streamlining their fee structure, their spending being tracked, whether the spending is being focused on something, how the resources are managed, the faculty resources, all these areas, including their finance, stores and all this. So we have a complete suite of 30+ modules. We call it as a 360-degree campus management system. Not only with the end-to-end life cycle management students, but also with the institution level. We also have the entire analytics built into it, which will be, of course, shown by Dr. Prashant. So these are the modules. Of course, most of you will be having our brochure with you. We have divided into 4 cycles: students, staff, including from your online recruitment till their exit process, with mobile applications to support the students, the parents, the staff, and other areas. Also the complete, if either it can be a university administration or your autonomous college or your affiliated colleges or trust. Under your colleges, you may have multiple institutions. So moving towards further enhancements, these all things are enabled in this, which has your e-learning process, your NAC enablement, your outcome-based education, and NARF ranking processes, and various other ranking processes which are coming in. And a lot of add-on modules which will help you track and manage the entire activities of your institutions, like your legal matters, meeting management, guest house, and all these areas. Entire suite is available for you. Let me just touch upon the founder of the organization, Mr. Shyam Somani, who used to be an academician like you. He used to be the HOD of Nagpur University Computer Center, and he is an MTech from VNIT, the current, earlier REC and current VNIT. These are our advisory board and people who help us move ahead in the industry. Dr. R. Nadarajan, of course, right now he is not too much mobile, but still he advises a lot. Dr. N. Jayashankaran, of course, many of you may be knowing about him a lot. He mentors us and helps us in the accreditation areas. Dr. Gokhale, who is one of the unique persons of being a director of different NITs. Dr. N.J. Rao from IISc, he helps us on the outcomes area. And Dr. Meenakshi Arya and Dr. S.K. Garg. So we also have a lot of academicians brought into our organization, like for the example, Dr. Prashant, Dr. Manoj Chandni, so many people. And the industry advisors, we have Mr. Madhusudan Kela, who is one of the prominent financial advisor also. Vaibhav Kumar Srivastava is head for Google Cloud. He also is a member of Niti Aayog and is an former senior leadership of education in Microsoft. Sharad Heda has, he was a vice chairman of NASSCOM's IT Services Council. He heads a huge company called Microland in Bangalore. So these all advise us how to go forward on technology areas. This is the spread of our organization from Kashmir down south to Kilakara in Tamil Nadu, from Nagaland down south to the western region with 4 or 5 major regional offices, Chennai South, Kolkata, Jamshedpur, Mumbai, etc. These are the various campuses, including the universities with the 40% of NITs of India, autonomous campuses, trust-run institutions like Deccan Education Society, Rai Soni, Sherpur, all these areas. And key onboardings which we had in 2022 are like our Rajagiri group. Recently, we have also associated with Little Flower College and also happened to associate with Nirmala College also. And universities, a lot of named and famed universities. Also, these are our success stories in various Xavier board institutions from Jaipur, Patna, Mumbai, Bilaspur schools, Patkai Christian College in Nagaland, Nagpur, and entire, spread across Indian subcontinent. I will invite Dr. Prashant to take over to the live session. So it will be a session which you can also ask questions. You can stop in between and ask questions whichever is relevant for you, so that you can show the examples which are, which have been taken care by us at various implementation areas.
Thank you, Mr. Krishna Kumar. Over to Dr. Prashant.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Prashant. You have heard of Krishna. Let me introduce my other colleagues as well. Along with me, Mushtaq Ahmed is there. And our general manager, Ashton Laurie, is here with us. Okay. So basically, I'll be directly demonstrating you the gist of what are the expectations of higher educations, the various assessment bodies, the accreditations bodies, and various statutory and non-statutory bodies. What are their expectations, what they want. Also in aligned with the national education policy, what are the steps that we should take ahead. And there are many of the universities, in India it started now, but there are a couple of universities in India as well as abroad who has taken these steps earlier. And they have been following this credit mobility and the entry and exit. So this has been followed at some part of the country and some part of the world. And what we did is we tried to summarize these aspects. So I'll give you a brief of what are steps that we can take and how do we take it and how ERP is going to help you out with those areas. So very first thing is the accreditation data management, because nowadays we have a NAC assessment. Every year we need to submit the AQR, and after 5 years we need to submit the SSR, and the institution categorization from various segments. Like some of the institutions are in affiliated, some they have again UG manual, then PG manual, then we have autonomous institution, then there are universities. Some universities are dual mode universities. There are some universities which are Sanskrit universities, Sanskrit colleges, and so on and so forth. And everywhere it's a collection of data from various authorities. So it's not only one or IQAC cell or the 7 criteria in charges who are responsible for this data management across the year, but it's a combined effort by all of the faculty members, wherein the data is going to be get collected from the decentralized manner. It is get accumulated in the platform and it is been presented in a way which is required by the assessing agency. So in order to cover that, what we did is we launched the ADMS module. So this is one of the module. out of 30 to 40 modules that we have, this is one of the module which is accreditation data management. And so I'll be logging into one of the autonomous kind of a segment institution. So this module has been configured for all the kinds of a manual. So if your institution is an affiliated institution, you will get all those matrices. If it is an autonomous institution, the autonomous matrices will be get loaded, and so on and so forth. Now, so first of all, this module has a broad way, you decentralize your works into all the segments into various criterias. So you can divide the responsibility of various criteria in charges. There can be criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. And the IQSC cell will on top monitor it. So that's the key advantage of this. The second thing is, the entire profile or entire data collection happen through the various areas. So I'll give a brief on every area, just a brief. So one is related to the enrollment. So what was our sanction strength and how much students are getting enrolled? Then what is our student to mentor ratio? Apart from that, we need to give a list of students to the NAC so that they can upload it on, we upload it on their portal, and it is been utilized for the SSS. So that student list, how you will get it, then how many students are benefited from free ship, scholarship by the government, beside the government. Then when it comes to curriculum, the system keep tracks of the revision of your curriculum. How many times the curriculum has been revised? What is the percentage of revision? Is it 20% and above? And then what, you just modified only the course code, or is it a significant change of the curriculum? Then now, apart from offering the routine courses, institutions are now offering the value-added courses or the add-on courses. So how many value-added courses are being offered by the institution in this year, and what is the duration of those years, and what is the students' enrollment in those value-added courses? Apart from that, the MOOCs courses. The system keep tracks of the research, facilities, and also what are the institutional efforts that we delivered on the research. So might be the research publication, so wherein publications from conference, publication from journals, book chapters will be get tracked. Not only that, when it goes to the conference, publication, it is also important that what is the quality of publication. Whether our publications are indexed one, is it in Scopus, is it in Web of Science, or emerging SCI, or Science Citation Index Expanded, or any of the citation databases. Then what is the force, or how much amount that we are spending on the consultancy facilities? It's not only that we as an institution we should, consultancy is one area wherein as an institution we are providing consultancy to the industry. But yes, in order to provide the consultancy to the industry, what kind of facilities or infrastructure as an institution we have created in our institution. So that is where you keep track of the consultancy and the facilities bin. Then altogether your infrastructure, which include the classrooms with ICT facilities, then the budgets for various kinds of facilities, staff and student centric. So system will keep track of how many PhD faculties that you have. And see, what happens is, when we talk about the NAC aspect, NAC will say how many faculty are you with a PhD, and how many of them are a research guide. Okay. But on the other aspect, when you talk about NIRF will say the age-wise distribution of the faculty. How many faculty are with experience of less than 8 years? How many are with 8 to 15 years? And how many are 15 years and above? Okay. So what this every time you don't have to manually ask HR to do this tedious process of the experience calculation of the faculty members, and then came to know, and then in which bucket you will place the faculty member so that you will get the good score and other factors. So system keep tracks of all these aspects, including the awards for the faculty member, award for the students, so on and so forth. Training, and then collaboration. So, yesterday and today also we had a lot of discussions on the collaboration, so that as an institution we can, how we can collaborate with each other for the research, for, student exchange, for the faculty exchange, for internship, placement opportunities, so on and so forth. No, the summary of all those data capturing through various segments of the user. It might be your HR, your placement head, the administrative offices, the faculty members, the student. So at the end, for your assessment cycle, you will get something, the analytics, which is available for the IQSE head or for the principal director, and for every criteria in charge is that, okay, I am going for which cycle. So system keep track of various your cycle management. So my sister introduced from the Fatima College. So I guess one of the most reputed institution with A++. Yeah. So I studied the SSR of Fatima College. So I am, I visited many of the institutions, and I keep track of the reputed institutions who are A+ or A++. What are the best practices are being adopted by them, even the analysis of the grade sheets, what are the percentage of levels that they carry out, what level of activities are been happening, and so on and so forth. So, keeping track of such kind of analytics onto the front screen of IQSE head, being the principal or being the director of the institution, you will came to know that, okay, my student to mentor ratio turn outs to be 18. Okay, in order to have a good marks, maybe I need to keep it to 1:15. That's a give you a sign of indication that I need to recruit a faculty members. Okay, so if the, one of the biggest advantage of using any of the ICT tool or, ERP in the context that we need to declare a result in less than 10 days. It has its own advantage. Okay. So many a times institution, even if it is autonomous institution, we conduct the exam and then we declare the result in a month's time. If that is so, NAC will give you 0 mark. Okay. So if we try to declare the result in 10 days, maybe we'll get full out of full. And that is only possible if there is ICT enablement, and your dashboard will keep you telling that your results, average number of days that you have not declared result is going beyond 10. So this is the overall dashboard which will keep track of your enrollment, your curriculum, your entire research. So maybe teacher who are awarded is 3 publication projects, the ICT facilities, all the stuff. It is also important for an institution to keep track of, are we progressing on a yearly basis? It's not that this time we had consultancy of 5 lakh or 1 crore, but last time it was much more. But then how you will keep track of it? So system keep tracks of what was your figures in the earlier academic year. So in 16-17, okay, you had something, if you consider any of the factor, expenditure on physical facilities, so it's 2.3 CR. But then last year it went down to 4.3 CR, but and then again it goes down to 2 CR. So that way you will keep track of, are we progressing year by year? So that's a sign of indication you will get it from such kind of analytics and the dashboard. Okay. So this is just a brief of the accreditation module that we have. Okay. I'll not go into much more details of this module, but in a gist, this is what currently many of the institutions are going for 3rd cycle of accreditation or for the 4th cycle of accreditation. Many of the institutions even had completed their 4th cycle of accreditation. Henceforth, maybe the 5th cycle will be there first time, and the institution will go for it. And now what is happening is every after 6 months or 1 year, NAC is changing their manual. So you need to also keep in mind that maintaining data in only that template is going to get difficult. So in order to solve this problem, what we did is, whenever the data has been collected, we also collect the attachments. So that is important. It's not that only record has been collected. We also keep track of what was the attachment. So even if some faculty left the institution, it's not that faculty left, data is also left. Okay, or the proper file handover is not happens. Each and every data is resides in the system, and you will get the consolidated PDF and consolidated report, maybe for 1 year, maybe for entire assessment period, or for 1 year. You can download all the files. You can also calculate your response, what is the percentage or what is the count that you are going to get. And whosoever is a concerned user using will be this page, they will also get the SOP. See, many a times what happens, IQAC head and the criteria in charge, they know the SOP. But the individual teacher or a team working behind, they are not much aware about SOP. What is expected in that particular metric or a criteria. So on every page you will get to know what is the specific SOP that has to be followed for a particular metric. Okay. So that's a brief of this ADMS module. And then I'll showcase you the outcome-based education module that we have.
Dr. Prashant?
Yeah.
We have lunch at 12:45.
Yes.
I would like to allot about 15 minutes for question answers so that there could be more clarity.
Yeah.
So maybe you can take 5 more minutes to wind up.
Sure. Okay, so outcome-based education, plays a very crucial role, and earlier only engineering kind of a segment used to follow the outcome-based education, I guess in 2012-13 onwards, but now recently even the art, commerce, science segment and many of the institution has come forward, and they follow now the outcome-based education, wherein we articulate course outcome, then CO to PO mapping, the indirect attainment, direct attainment, so on and so forth. So in order to solve this, and many a times we try to maintain this data in Excel, and this is getting very much difficult if you try to maintain a data of entire batch in Excel, and then the batch is get passed out, next batch come in, and their data again you need to maintain it in Excel. So to solve this problem, what we have is the outcome-based education module that is in place, wherein this is the HOD's dashboard. Every HOD will get the login credential. So HOD can keep track of what is the status of every course, whether the COs are being articulated, COPO mapping is done, the assessment component, question paper, marks entry, the CO attainment calculation is done or not, PO attainment is done. If it is done, then what is the attainment percentage? The red indicates there is a gap, and the PO attainment, so on and so forth. And you can send the reminders to your faculty right from there, that okay, your marks entry is pending. So okay, just select the marks entry and send the email. All the faculty members whose marks entry is pending, they will be notified that okay, your mark entry is pending. Okay. And this is the entire process that has been followed. You can articulate your vision, mission, program educational objectives, program outcome, course outcome, CO to PO mapping, then you can create a question paper, marks entry, CO attainment, PO attainment, and when entire batch get graduate, you will get the PO attainment, even the mission attainment. Okay. So when you articulate the course outcome, you can tag the cognitive levels, the Bloom's taxonomy, and the knowledge level. It also guide you, a user, that what are the course outcome. It's not that just data entry kind of a system. Many of the faculty members are new in institution. They don't know how to articulate CO, what should be the composition of course outcome. So system will also guide the user that, okay, how to articulate CO, how to do CO and PO mapping, how to do the marks entry. Now here the marks entry will be question wise. Earlier we used to have, single kind of a marking system. Okay, some student got 30 out of 50, but now this is something wherein that 30 marks paper is how many questions. Every question is tagged with course outcome, the knowledge level, and what is the student that they achieved. And once you do the marks entry either manually or via uploading Excel, you will get to know the attainment calculation. So wherein you set the target and do the attainment system, and also keep track of the gap analysis. So positive, green indicates that you met the target, red indicates that you have not yet met the target. Okay. And further, there are various kinds of reports and analytics is available in the system, wherein one of the very interesting report I'll showcase you is the learning analysis of the student, which I call it as a cognitive analysis of the student. So this graph gives you analytics that how many students are, whether your students are performing well, in which band they are, what is the learning capability of the student, which students are good in apply, which students are good in understanding, which students are good in remember. If some students are not good, you can plan some extra classes, remedial classes for this set of students. Okay, so this is in general brief of the OB module that we have. One of the very recent news is that the NIRF DCS portal is, the registration is going to close on 7th of November. Okay, so once your registration is done, you will get some 3 months of period to upload the NIRF data on DCS portal and keep track of all other aspects. So I can happily announce at this gathering that this is the module which is free for an educational institution. You can free to use this module for 1 year. Absolutely free of cost, nothing hidden charges from our end. Okay, so and with this module you can actually get two things. One is you can access to complete outcome based education of your institution, you can plan it. Second important aspect, since now the NRF is coming in just next 10 days, so I'll showcase you the NIRF dashboard that is here. So it keep track of all kinds of activities, and this will be your something NIRF dashboard. Okay, so wherein you will keep track of what was your sanction intake, how many students are going to be gender wise for across category of the program, the geographical distribution of your students, category wise distribution of the student, tuition fee wise detail, what is the placement and what is the median salary that has been offered to the student, how many of your faculty members, the research scholars are doing the PhD in institution in part-time, full-time mode, the IPR which talks about the patent filed versus granted, MOOCs courses developed, if any data is there it will come, and then the financial resources that has been spent by the institution, sponsor research projects, consultancy, and then executive development programs, PCS facilities, your earlier NBA and NAC accreditation details, and finally the faculty list. This is exactly the same as the data capturing system report that you will going to get onto the NIRF. Okay, so this is your pre-preparation for NIRF, that you can keep track of on your system what is the overall the DCS will look like when the data collection gets started. People will upload the data, it is collated, and this is the summary. You will get the entire list, entire access to what is data being uploaded, so that you will also have a proof for it. Although NRF may not ask every institution to give a proof, but randomly they select couple of institutions and they ask for a proof. Further, I'll just take 5 more minutes. Okay. We also have a platform for the future, in the sense that in the NEP, one of the context is distance learning. Okay, and we want to offer certain courses, maybe a value-added course, add-on courses, vocational courses, or when you talk about say multi-entry and multi-exit, it's that a student has completed 1 year, you will offering diploma, maybe 2 years a graduation kind of degree, 1 year more and the graduation in honors, so on and so forth. And you can also offer courses in the online mode. Okay, so a diploma course, a certification course, value-added course, or an add-on course, you can offer it. So that is where you will get your exclusive branding of your institution on a landing page. Any student from any part of the world can do just a sign up, they will have access to the course. So let us say this is a teacher. So teacher will came to know, okay, what are all courses available in the platform. So as an institution, you can offer a course either free of cost or in a paid mode. Any student from any part of the world can, register for the course either freely or in a paid manner. And your teacher will, the teacher from the institution will be the instructor for this course. So for a teacher, it's a content creation entirely available in the system. You can create all the set of modules, the sub-modules, topic. You can add the resources, the video, files. After every video, you can ask your student a question, a quiz, maybe an assessment or a quiz, so on and so forth. The announcement, result, the online classes, creation of test, assignments, monitoring a test, question bank, forum, QA, everything, and the learner list of this course. So the complete LMS package, along with wherein you can offer this course either free or paid to your institution student, also the other institution. And one of the advantage of this platform is you can offer it in your regional language. Okay, so NEP also focus on the Indian knowledge system and the, the focus on the regional language. So it might be possible that the Kerala institution is offering certain course in their own Malayalam language, so on and so forth. Okay, and the regional student can register for the course. Okay, so when the student will log in into their login, I'll just log in into one of the student account. So student will get to know my learning and how much course I have completed. So right now you could see some 8% is completed. And okay, they could see the video of the entire course. If it is complete, it will be indicated that it is marked as complete. So student has seen that entire video. After that, he has might be attempted a quiz question. So the entire course you can offer. This is the course description, the outline, course outcomes, prerequisite, the QX question. So as a teacher, you can ask question. Student can also ask questions, and the teacher can either give a reply or the other colleagues can give a reply. The notes, while watching the video, student can make a notes. Okay, this was the point, and then the task, upcoming task, which teacher has allotted to the student, the upcoming test. Here something wherein you can take the online test in a proctored manner. Okay, so video of the student is getting captured, images getting captured, and you will come to know, okay, what student is doing at every interval of time. The announcement, reference books, and student can also give rating to your course. That okay, it's 5-star, good, very good, so that there is a scope of improvement. Okay.
Mr. Prashant, you may take 1 minute to wind up so that some questions can be asked.
Yes. So,
yes.
Yeah, we can ask.
Yeah. Is it over, your presentation?
Yeah. If there is some questions, if there are something to be showcased, I'll briefly showcase.
Now the floor is open. Now you have listened to him for more than 45 minutes. So feel free to ask any question.
Yes.
Academic, about the program, the financial implication, and the role of the staff and the students, data modification. Any question, please?
Yeah, Dr. Prashant.
Yes.
I'm Alok John from Patna Women's College, and we are currently we are completing our 3rd cycle of NAC accreditations and going to the 4th cycle. The question is with respect to the NAC ERP system. 7 criterias of NAC are there. So who does the data entry, initial data entry, and how that initial data entry feeding ensures that the data are correct? Is it at your end or is it the college end?
No. So there is something which is at our end. So far as entry part is concerned, it is it is important that when an institution is going for any of the cycles of NAC, maybe third or fourth cycle, the data collection is a, of course, voluminous process, and it's not only the responsibility of the criteria in charge or the IQSC head to collect the data. So to solve this problem, what we did is we made it completely decentralized. Okay. So what happens is publication or the, say for example, the research funding or research projects data. So every department got certain research projects. So the departmental coordinator, whosoever is a research R&D coordinator of the department, they will have access to the platform wherein they will not see each and everything. Only research related component they will see it. They will, okay, couple of fundings that they got it from, the UGC or from AICT or anywhere else. So they can, add the details. Your criteria 3 in charge will get to know, okay, how many public research fundings are there from this department and from the other department. So the data collection is totally decentralized. The finance officer is involved, the HR is involved, individual student is also involved, the faculty member is involved, your training and placement officer is involved. So whosoever is the responsible authorities who are governing this, whatever is a faculty related data, they will enter it from their login, and criteria in charge or a department can verify it. Okay, whether the publication is authentic, can we consider it, for the SSR or not. So the answer is, it's a decentralized manner, and for us the instance creation is just a 5-minute process for us. So I can, at any of your institution, I can right now create an institution, hand over you the IQSC login, and then my entire academic team will be there to support you in overall process. So along with me in my company, there are some 12 to 15 members who are from academic background. So I am not the only one who is academician in my company. So there are 15 people who is, have an academic background. So they help the institution to use, how to use the module, they train them, and then they also give, if the required on-site visit also happens. I hope that answer.
Yes, kindly introduce yourself, please.
I'm Gigi Thomas from Marivanis College, Trivandrum.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions, 1 or 2 or 3 simple questions. Can someone of you explain to us the cost component of these modules in the entirety? And also, if we want to purchase individual modules, is it possible?
Yes.
And also, you talked about the outcomes, achievements.
Yes.
So, what are the parameters you use for outcome achievement? Is it simply the marks of exams,
No,
or
no.
do you have some other inbuilt parameters for measuring the outcome achievement, whether it is program outcome or course outcome?
Yeah.
And
So-
you said about a free module, which is open to all colleges.
Yes.
And how can we all access it?
Okay. So,
thank you.
So first of all, in the outcome-based education module that we have, it's not only on the marks. Okay. So, see, assessment is one of the parameter to judge the, or to evaluate the outcomes of the student, whether the whatever target or whatever outcome that we set, is it achieved or not. So that is one way wherein you might conduct your continuous assessment or the final kind of examination, so on and so forth. The other aspect that has been also covered is the stakeholders of the society. So when I say stakeholders of the society, it include various stakeholders. So what are the opinion of your employers? Okay, so whosoever a student who has joined couple of organizations, so those are your employers, and what is their opinion about this graduate who has graduated from that particular program? Second, yeah, that comes maybe much after. That is what kind of indirect one. So which include the alumni, which include the employer, which include even the program exit feedback, which is from that student. The course exit feedback is also available into the system. So when a teacher deliver a course for 35 hours to 40 hours, after course delivery is over, the course exit feedback again gives you aspect. Apart from that, the entire system, we also have a rubrics in place. So when you are, you plan for a presentation of the student, so you can configure the rubrics for those presentation. What are the areas wherein you are going to judge the student? Maybe on the communication skill, technical abilities, the other aspect, the body language, how he has a coordination or he or she has a coordination with the fellow team members. So the rubrics are also in place. So it's not only assessment. Assessment is one part. The rubric-based assessment is also an aspect. The surveys are also part of a system. So those components, all together contributes to the outcome at this moment. Yeah.
Okay, before sister asking the question, 1 minute, Father.
Yes.
He'll get back to you.
Huh. Yeah. So free module, there are two options. Either you can visit to our website, so which is on outcome-based education, outcome-based-education.org. So that's our website. There is another option also. You must got our company brochures, wherein you can contact any of the numbers and they will help you out with this process. But if you want to do it yourself, don't want to contact anyone, you need to visit this website, outcome-based-education.org. Here is a sign up option, and in the sign up, you sign up as an organization. A form will come, you upload some basic details. It came to me for approval. I'll contact you, I'll approve it, you will get the admin credentials, and my team will be there to help you out with the entire process. So this is simple steps. The second option is you can contact a number, and then you don't have to fill this. My team will take care of it. So that is how you can access to this model.
Okay, before we go to the next question, may I know how many of you have already ERP? How many of you have ERP in your institution? Okay, at least half. Okay, yes, sister.
I am Sister Alice, Principal, St. Paul Institute of Professional Studies, Indore. Now, program outcomes and course outcomes. Yes. Yeah, what is the difference between program outcomes and course outcomes?
Okay. So, when we talk about the outcome, so outcome is the, what a student can able to do at the end of learning experience. Okay. Now, the learning experience will vary in terms of its tenure. Say, for example, it's a 1 hour session. So 1 hour session is a learning experience, and what a learner can able to do at the end of that learning experience. When we talk about a course is a subject of 30 hours to 40 hours. We span it around 2 months or 3 months, wherein a teacher delivers a topic, entire course which has every topic, and even a topic has a topic outcomes. So at the end of the course, say for example, there is a course on database management, and I am a teacher and there are 60 students who has enrolled for that course, and 30 hours I am delivering that course. So after the end of course, what a student shall able to do is a course outcome. So maybe they don't have a prior knowledge of database, so now they will write SQL queries, they can design a database, they can normalize the database, so on and so forth. So you can define a set of outcomes on the 6 cognitive levels. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Okay, so that's a course outcome. Now when we talk about a journey of 2 years or a journey of 3 years, a student admitted in BSc Computer Science, it's a 3-year program. So students studied couple of courses or subjects in semester 1, then they progress to semester 2, progress to semester 3, 4, 5, and then 6, and then they graduate. So that's a program. So what is the outcome of this entire program? A 3-year journey, those are a program outcome. So you can define a program outcome of your own based on the graduate attribute. What are your expectations, or what the graduates are expecting from the program? Maybe the communication skill, the ethical skill, they can solve the complex problem, they should have a basic science knowledge. Like NBA has given a 12 program outcomes, and many of the engineering institutions follow the 12 program outcomes given by NBA. Okay, but it's not like that we should follow someone only. Say ours is not an engineering institution, then you can articulate your own program outcome. So maybe 7 to 12 program outcome based on the graduate attributes, what a graduate shall able to do after their graduate. So maybe if you are expecting they should have a good communication skill, they should be lifelong learner, they should use a modern tools, so on and so forth. So that way you can decide the program outcome. So course outcome is limited to a course, a subject of 30 hours. When you talk about program outcome, it's the entire journey of that 3 years or a 4 year. Yeah.
Okay, we are overshooting the time. Maybe 1 or 2 questions, please.
Myself, Alfonso Vijaya Joseph from St. Teresa's College, Ernakulam. I had the same question as Dr. Jijimon had. Now, to another question, what would be the financial implications? I think we didn't get an answer. Who will be in charge of the maintenance, if any? Will there be a system admin from your part at our institution? Are there any modules for question bank and the feedback system? The question bank according to a blueprint that is given by the college. Ours is an autonomous college. Thank you.
Okay. So, first of all, when an institution goes for the entire ERP, okay, so like you could see, this is the entire ERP login which covers pretty much every module that an institution requires, right from the configurations, the pre-admissions, admission, post-admission, the academics, timetable, setting up the question pattern, assessment pattern, teacher can decide their own assessment pattern, pre-exam, post-exam, sitting arrangement, marks entry, publishing a result, student can see the result on their mobile app, software, convocation. Apart from that, placement, library, accounting, payroll, finance, HR, you are applying for leave, so you are absent on that particular day. So those days lectures need to be transferred to someone else because you are not present on that day. It's a complete ERP, okay. So if the institution is subscribing for the entire ERP, one is we do provide a dedicated support to the institution, okay. So it based on what kind of agreement is there. One is if you require on-site support, which will, a person will remain on your campus, one, that option is available. Second, there is a support online from the head office 24 hours, okay, every day, I mean that the support is available. Plus, in some cases, if you don't want that resource to be placed at my institute for a long time, you can place it for 3 months, get your staff trained, and then as on when required, the resource will come. Online support is always available. But whenever physical help, I mean some required that, okay, you want someone to help it out, the resources are available. Our clientele locations are at more than 200 plus cities. So in every part of this country, our support engineers are available, and we are having almost team of 400
Prashant,
people. Yeah.
The question was pointed. She has asked a particular question about examination reform, question bank.
I'll cover the question.
Because, yeah, so be quick because there are 2 more questions.
I guess your first question was related to support. Okay, so when it comes to question bank, yes, so we have an entire repository management of the question. So the teacher can, create the question paper from the question bank, and it's an automated process. So if you want to conduct the proctored examination, you can define a question bank set, and then how many sets you want to create, and what is the level of those questions, hard, medium, easy, so on and so forth. So if you have a 60 student in your course, you want to create a 4 sets, system will automatically create a 4 set, allocate to that student can attempt it. At the end, you will get the assessment outcome that, okay, these are the marks that they obtain. So the entire question bank management, and the questions are linked with the course outcomes. So that way you can keep track of outcome attainment as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a comprehensive student feedback module, which you could see over here. So when it comes to feedback, you can configure the feedback the way you want. Okay, so it can be a feedback by the student to the teacher. It can be a feedback by the teacher to their head of department. It can be a feedback from alumni. It can be a feedback from your employer. It can be a feedback of exit feedback, course exit feedback. You will get entire analytics of what feedback is being given by the student. You can schedule the feedback also. 3rd semester student will give the feedback on 27th and 28th of October. 5th semester student will give the feedback on this time slot. Only thing that we don't give you in feedback is the identity of the student. Who has given this feedback? The name of the student, we will not give it to you. Okay. we keep the confidentiality of the feedback, that who has given the feedback, even we don't maintain it. So we keep it in an anonymous way, that who has given the feedback. But you will get the analytics, what is the percentage of feedback for the course, for the teacher, for the entire program, so on and so forth. You can configure your own pattern by yourself. We also have a predefined pattern into the system. You can refer to that, or you can configure by your own. So it's a configurable. It's not that I am giving you 10 questions, you refer as it is. It's not like that.
Okay, I saw two more hands. Any more questions? Yeah. Please go ahead.
Hello. Okay. 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 So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Autonomous.
Autonomous system here, you have an university system here. So each and everyone has a different requirement. So we have systems which address to each and every requirement. And it depends on the modules. What Sir was asking whether it is a modular approach. Yes, we have a modular approach. So these all factors are taken into account, and ours is a per student per year model kind of a thing. So for affiliated colleges, I'll put it in a very straightforward way, it is a very affordable system. And also to the models as it is required. For an autonomous college, it is bit expensive because of the kind of requirements it caters. For an university, it is really expensive, but not to that level. We take care of the data protection, whether it is on the cloud with disaster recovery. So it's a model which combines the modules, the requirements of the institution, the number of students, and what is the kind of customization we have to take care with each institution.
Okay.
So,
in other words, it's a public question to be asked in private. Last question, please.
Yeah. Same question.
Answered. Any other question, please? I'm happy that the entire team is here. Let us make use of them.
Right.
But after all, you are not a regulatory body in order to keep the data. At least to the principal, you should make it available.
You see what?
If you are a regulatory body, you could have kept the names for you. But you are only assisting the college.
See, what happens is we do understand that we are not a regulatory body. But when we say feedback, the expectation of the students are their identity is kept anonymous. So that is the expectation. So you will get to know what remark they have given. Okay.
Yeah. You know what are things. So institutions themselves have requested us to have a system which is anonymous. So we had to, the teacher defines it, it goes to the students of that particular class. And for the students to whom she or he has taught, even if you want to have, you are like, so the HOD is, the principal wants the feedback of an HOD from his faculty. The HOD will never like the principal to have which all faculties have actually given what feedback to him. That actually, in a way, it is a requirement from most of the institutions what we are servicing. So the system has been built into that. We don't control that. The system itself, the process is built in like that because of the request from all the concern was that people from outside the institution can give feedback. That is only.
No, this is the student feedback for the course.
That is not possible. That's not.
See, industry feedback, alumni feedback, you can see. That is okay, because what industry, which industry has given pointed out, that is fine. When it comes to student giving a feedback for the teacher for a course, that is we kept it as anonymous. Alumni, the industry, that is for the betterment of education. If TCS is giving a feedback that, okay, this is thing. Infosys is giving the feedback that, okay, you should improve on this aspect, that's fine.
I do see the point of the maintaining confidentiality so that students are spontaneous and outspoken. On the other hand, in the present system, there are also elements trying to infiltrate the system to bring down the dignity and the name of the college. So there should be a kind of balance, how much to, and there should be checks and balances. That's all. Any other question, please? Father Ludraj.
Can you explain to me about your security system? How secure our data is?
Okay. Rather than explaining, I will showcase you. This is my live instance. If you want to check the security of any of the website, any of the platform, go to this website securityheaders.com. Okay. In Google, if you type security headers, that's fine. Even you can check the website of your institution as well. Okay. If you are in A or A plus grade, means your platform is completely secure. Okay. If not, it will also give you what are the areas where those has been improvement. So when it comes to the security, the system is foolproof with the SQL injection. At any point of time, SQL injection is not going to happen into the system. No unauthorized user can enter into this system. The one who has a password, only they can enter into the system. Second, we follow almost every norms which is said by the government. We are compliance with the Meghraj policy of Government of India. So we are maintaining the data on the cloud. When we say cloud, we don't maintain it on any of the local providers. We follow the brand. So being platinum or a gold partner of the Microsoft, we maintain the data on Microsoft Azure cloud. Second, the AWS of Amazon. Third one is a Google cloud. So these are the only 3 cloud providers wherein your data will be hosted. Secondly, once the data is get hosted, its access is not public one, it's a very confidential access. And at no cases, the database layer is been directly touched by the user. Even at company also, it's not that the developer who is doing the development will have access to that database. It's not like that. So we have a very tight and stringent security, policies in place, processes in place in company also, that who has access to data, to what level the access has been given, and so those are aspects which arises. But yes, if you want to check the security of any system, you can visit to this site, get it checked. You will came to know what are the vulnerabilities available. Our almost every ERP. I can say Macout or this outcome or ADMS or anyone. If you enter it over here, you will get the security grade as A only. So that's a highly secure system.
If there are no questions, I request Dr. Prashant to take his seat.
Sir, I have just one last 1 minute point to be made. Okay. Since yesterday and today, we had a lot of discussion on the collaboration. Okay. So this is something which I have, experienced in my previous collaboration with one of the education institutions and also with my foreign clients. So this is one of the very prestigious client of Sri Lanka, which is SLIT, which is having a collaboration with many of the other universities, which even the UGC chairman recently talked about, the foreign institutions has a collaboration with your institution for the award of degree. We are already in place with this system wherein you can have a collaboration with the foreign institution or of the Indian institution. You can jointly offer a degree. Say for example, BSc Computer Science by the Fatima College. The student will get BSc Computer Science. They will complete one bridging semester, couple of module requisite. They will went on to the Curtin's University of US. There they will complete 1 year and they will get BSc Computer Science honors from Curtin's University. So this is the trend which is going to come in India in next 1 and 2 years. We already have this in place in a solution because many of the other countries, they already adopted this solution. And that the same thing now we are introducing in India. So collaboration, since yesterday there was one of the area of collaboration, so I thought I'll share this one of the aspect with you.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant. Kindly be seated. In a college, they conducted a program on ethical hacking. At the end of the course, they found the college website was hacked. So that is the fruit of the course on ethical hacking. On one hand, it is very clear that we need to have office automation with a minimal human intervention so that data, as Father Lurdaraj from Andhra Loyola College has insisted upon, they should be safe because students can book us for the data violation. So we need to go for a very efficient system of ERP. On the other hand, we also should know that we have control, we have the learned outcome we want in our categories, and also there should be a kind of pluriform of outcomes so that in whatever, for example, Madam said about examination reform, question bank. No, because we have been talking about examination reform for quite some time, but nothing much has taken place except in few autonomous colleges. So the system also should be open to have a dialogue. They should be available and dialogue and take feedback so that it is mutually beneficial. So I am very grateful to Dr. Prashant for the lucid presentation. I invite Father Lurdaraj from Andhra Loyola College to propose the word of thanks.
The devil is in details, because when you go for any software, basically you have to customize. And customization is the domain of the managers of the institutes or any of the college principal, or you can ask someone to do. So that is what it is done. Basically, there are ERPs available. There are ERP pluses available. So this is basically ERP plus. ERP plus. And Dr. Prashant, Krishna Kumar, and Mushtaq and Ashton, they have done a great job of presenting their software to us. In fact, our college also, we have been deciding on certain softwares. But then there are a lot of questions. One question that I asked was the one asked by some of the computer experts, the security. How secure will be our data? Because you will certainly enter all your data. Suppose something happens, it crashes, what do you do? Will you lose all the data? Again, you have to put it, and I got a right answer. So there are many, and then in fact it is up to us to make sure that we choose the right software. And of course the cost involved, that question was not answered for specific reasons, because like our college, we have 4,500 students, degree students. So if you are putting a cost of even 400 rupees, it will cost a lot. And then again the yearly maintenance will be there. So whether you will be charging the students or you'll be charging, the institute will be able to bear. These are certain questions that we need to take. All said and done, I thank Father Rex for animating this session. And I thank again the team for presenting their modules. And let us hope that some of us may get in, and you may make your software cheaper, but not standard is good, but that we could be affordable for our institutions, because we don't charge high fees. And therefore, if you can consider us, because we serve the poor, we serve the downtrodden, that will be an offer that will be suited, well suited for our institutions. Thank you.
A small request is, please come on the stage for the small group photo.
By the time we arrange ourselves for the group photograph, I wanted to tell you all that we shall assemble back here by 1:45 for the business session and AGM in this main venue. So all of us shall assemble here in the main venue at 1:45.
Thank you.